Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, Parallel Deku, back with another fanfiction. This is the third part of What If Vigilante Deku Was Adopted by Aizawa? Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Sitting at his desk in the teacher's lounge, Izuku longed for the holiday break that had just ended. Even if he still had to do schoolwork over break, it was nothing compared to the mountain of work that he had come back to. Ectoplasm Sensei had given him double lessons with the hope that he would complete all of his remedial lessons with a month to spare before the new semester. Apparently, there were more than just a few topics of math the Izuku needed to catch up on. Overall, however, math lessons were nothing compared to his English language lessons with Yamada Sensei. The first day back at school, Yamada Sensei had been pulled into Principal Nezu's office for a little less than an hour. When he re-emerged, the man had a dark shadow over his features and had started drilling Izuku in the same way the Aizawa Sensei drilled him during his physical training. If Izuku had been taking too many of his 10-minute breaks before, he was taking an absurd amount now. Every 2 hours, on the hour, Izuku would leave the tiny desk and try to make it as far as he could in 5 minutes before having to turn back around. Luckily, his reading list hadn't grown any since the break, though it was still obnoxiously long. Izuku knew that most middle schoolers didn't actually read 50 novels for classwork during their 3 years. Yet Nezu and Cementos had been adamant that he would need the information on each book for his high school career. There is no world in which the Iliad is necessary before high school. Deku thought idly before shaking his head and setting the book down. The poetry did not translate well into Japanese, and Izuku was frustrated at the choppy flow that the poor language transition created. The freckled-faced child leaned back in his chair and stared at the ceiling before closing his eyes. "That does not look like studying," a soft but high-pitched voice said. Deku peeked an eye open at Nezu before shutting it again. "I'm taking my time to absorb the information." The boy said, no hint of the usual mischief he would use with Aizawa Sensei. Deku knew better than to joke with Nezu when it came to schoolwork by now. The principal always took the opportunity to pile on more. Nezu grinned evilly at the boy as he wandered closer. Looking at the book he had been reading. The Iliad. A glorious classic depicting a gruesome time in human history. The rat said, before saying something in a language that Izuku couldn't place, most likely speaking a quote from the book. "The original Greek has always been my preferred translation." "How many languages do you know?" Deku asked warily. "I'm fluent in 9, but have a decent understanding of many others," Nezu said cheerily. "Perhaps you will achieve a greater number than I, Midoriya-kun. I can strongly get a handle on the first extra language I'm trying to learn," the boy said in reply. Nezu only chuckled. "Aizawa and a few of the other teachers came to speak to me in the past few days," Nezu said, piquing Izuku's curiosity. "It seems they wish for you to focus on tactical and physical advancement to better your chances of getting into the hero course." The rat was looking at the boy intensely, and Deku looked back with equal confidence. "I disagree, so I decided that it may be left up to you to decide." "What is there to decide exactly?" Deku asked. "You have a choice. The entrance exams are in 1 month and 1 week. You can continue your schedule as is, or so we can alter it to focus on the skills the teachers have asked to have you focus on." Deku looked at the man warily. "What's the catch for each option? You always add something." Nezu grinned at him. "I have agreed not to personally give you any extra work until the entrance exams. However, should you keep the current schedule, the other teachers will be lengthening your day to benefit your chances regardless of what you want to do. They have this idea that if you fail, I may break you or something." Nezu cackled as if the idea were ridiculous, but Deku had a sinking feeling that the statement was nothing but truth. "The other option? Should you change your schedule, you will focus your school day on tactical advancement and physical endurance. Since you are not to know what the exam entails, the teachers are hoping to give you as much of an edge as possible. However, doing so will put you behind in your studies. I had hoped your remedial lessons would conclude before the new term, but should you choose this new schedule, the remedial lessons will continue during the first semester of your high school year. So, that would mean that I would have not only my normal schoolwork and lesson, But any support course projects, hero course extracurriculars, and the remedial lessons all stacked on top of one another. Deku grimaced at the thought. When would I have time to sleep? Exactly. Nezu hummed. Best to just finish before the start of the new year. But if the teachers are nervous that I won't pass the exam, there is bound to be a reason for their insistence on me changing my schedule. Izuku thought for a moment. How? How many teachers asked you to change my schedule? All of them, Nezu said with a cheerful grin. Izuku paled slightly, rethinking his options. Can I speak with Aizawa-sensei first? Of course, Nezu said. I just need an answer before next Monday. With that, the rat left Izuku alone to think over this new conundrum. Underscore 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 underscore. Nezu spoke with MME today, Izuku said as he sat at the dinner table with most of the other teachers. The entrance exams, hero course graduation exams, end-of-year field trips, and upcoming finals had them all pulling late hours, thus the house was mostly full. What about Izuku? Kame-sensei asked. Changing my daily routine, he said. That all of you all asked him to let me focus on the exam instead of remedial lessons. The other teachers all gave one another looks, most having not realized the others had also gone to Nezu. I know you can't tell me much, but why don't you think I'll pass? It's not that we don't think you're capable of succeeding in the hero course, Vlad King stated quickly. I'm pretty sure you'll be better than a majority of the other applicants, said Kame-sensei. The problem is the exam itself, Aizawa-sensei said from his side. It's rigged. Rigged? Izuku asked. It's not rigged, Shota. Yamada scolded the man. Yes, it is. Aizawa turned his head towards Izuku. It's designed to benefit those with flashy quirks. Nezu insists that those who don't have flashy quirks still have a chance if they use their brains. However, he forgets that not everyone has his mental abilities. But I don't have a quirk, Izuku said after a moment. Exactly. Your abilities of human analysis and your skill in hand-to-hand combat are extremely helpful most of the time, rivaling that of a person with a quirk. However, with this exam, those skills won't do you much good. I don't understand. Why not? We can't tell you, little listener. Izuku furrowed his brow at the teachers. If I don't have information, how am I supposed to make the best choice? This is what I can give you, Aizawa sighed. If I had to have done this entrance exam when I tried to get into UA, I would have been sent to the general studies course. My quirk doesn't work on the opponents you will be facing, and I barely had a handle on my capture scarf back then. This test would have been a terrible match for 14-year-old me. Izuku studied his teacher for a moment. Who else would have failed? Only Kame-sensei raised her hand at his question. Izuku left the table to grab both his notebook, a blank notebook, and a pencil from his room. Izuku flipped through the pages and wrote notes as he ate. The other teachers chatting lightly and enjoying their food. It's robots, he said eventually, looking up from his scribbles. Kame-sensei's quirk only works on living, breathing beings. If she wouldn't be able to use it, then that means that whatever is in the exam either isn't alive or simply can't breathe. Aizawa-sensei can erase people's quirks, but if it isn't a person, or the rare animal with a quirk, then he can't do anything. And if he couldn't use his capture weapon well yet, then he wouldn't have many options. Everyone else here has a quirk that would allow for the destruction or immobilization of any object, regardless of if it is living or not. Even Yamada-sensei could scream loud enough to throw something off balance. So that means the entrance exams have us paired against robots, right? Most of the teachers looked impressed by the kid, a few turning their heads to not outright smile at him. We can't tell you, Aizawa said, a smirk playing across his lips. Izuku smiled at him, knowing full well that he had hit the mark. He reviewed his options again as he downed the last bit of food. If they were people-sized robots or smaller, It wouldn't be an issue. I can subdue a grown man or smaller relatively easily, so we'll either be facing giants or be expected to take the robots out completely, something that also won't be easy for me to do. But I doubt it's the latter, as this is a hero course, and subduing is usually praised more than destroying. Izuku continued to think out loud. If the robots were just idling around, it also wouldn't be an issue, so they must have pretty powerful attacking capabilities. It's up in the air if they are fast or merely powerful. So I'll have to accommodate for both. Brat. Izuku looked up suddenly. Stop mumbling at the table. It's unnerving. There was no bite in Aizawa's tone, though. Underscore 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 Izuku ultimately decided on splitting his schedule. 3 days would be spent doing his original curriculum, and the other 2 days, plus the weekend, would be spent preparing physically and taking specialized classes with Powerloader to work around the robot problem. The support class teacher couldn't give him any information on the specs of the robots, so Izuku opted to learn the basic structures of most mobile machines. There were 5 main internal structures that Izuku memorized and a select amount of wires that would need to be avoided, as they would be nearly fatal if pulled at the wrong time. Once Izuku had this basic information, he would theoretically be able to take down most machines so long as he could get close enough to them. Therein lay the larger problem. Though Izuku had gained weight, he was still small and lacked protective muscle. He was fast, but the robots may be as well. Without muscle, he would be out of the game quickly after just a few hits from giant metal limbs. The boy would continue working out, shifting his focus from stamina and cardio training to gaining muscle, but ultimately, he and the teachers of UA knew he would need something else to keep him from being eliminated after just a few hits. How did you handle the bigger guys you fought? Yamada-sensei asked one morning as Izuku huddled over his English book. I either didn't fight them or I attacked from behind. Deku replied. If they managed to get in too many hits, I'd try and find an opening to run. Or Shota would come to save you. Yamada-sensei said with a grin. Deku glared at him over his textbook. I already planned to try and sneak up on the robots, but the issue is that they will most likely come after me. If I am being actively sought out, I can't fight back via stealth very effectively. Yamada hummed and continued the lesson. Underscore 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 Izuku was becoming increasingly stressed out over the exam as it neared closer. Thus, the Deku part of his mind was becoming much more active, much to the annoyance of the teachers who were also stressed out. The boy had tried asking to keep weights in his room to give the teachers a break when he was feeling particularly nasty, but that was against the rules for his safety. Deku had grumbled that he wouldn't do anything, but the new, irritated and red scratches on his wrists and ankles immediately made him lose the argument. In the 5 weeks between the schedule change and the exam, Deku had been grounded 3 times. The teachers kept the punishments to single days, but they were still detrimental to his plan. Each time he was stalled in his training only made the child more anxious as he lost time to practice. The anxiety then led him to act out again. Overall, the situation wasn't ideal. It all seemed to come to a head 3 days before the exam. You keep making the same mistakes, problem child. Maybe we should give it a rest today so that you can clear your head. Deku panted from his spot on the ground. It was evening, and he and Aizawa were sparring in the padded room of the night dorm. No, I can keep going. I have to keep going. Aizawa shook his head, relaxing his stance. No, we are done. Go get a shower before dinner. No, Deku shouted angrily at the man. Aizawa turned to look at the boy, eyebrows rising. Don't just give up on me. I'm not, Aizawa said. I can still do more, Deku said with an earnest but frustrated inflection as he stood from the ground. I know you can't, brat, Aizawa said, his voice rising in a snap. Deku flinched back and looked to the side. It was rare that Aizawa-sensei used that tone of voice with him. There are only 3 days left. If you push yourself too strong, you won't be in your top shape. Understand? Yes, Deku muttered, his teeth clenched. The boy dragged his hands through his hair and shifted from foot to foot. Good. Now go and shower before dinner. Deku's body shook as anger coursed through him. Aizawa seemed to notice as he was suddenly on alert, ready for the boy to lash out at him. Deku didn't, though opting to stand still until he felt he could safely move. He was trying. He really was. Aizawa watched the boy and then rolled his eyes. One more. That's it. Aizawa huffed, making Deku look up at the man. Aizawa got in a ready position, waiting for Deku to do the same. In less than 3 minutes, Deku was slammed into the ground, the breath leaving his lungs. It was no different than the other times, but tears filled the boy's eyes, and he hit the ground in anger as he stared up at the ceiling. FCK, the boy cried out. Tears started to stream down his face, only to be scrubbed away roughly. Why are you upset? Aizawa asked. Deku refused to meet his eye as he sat up. It's nothing. I thought you didn't like lies. Deku glared at the man before deflating completely. I haven't made any progress, the boy screamed out, body quivering from his overwhelming emotions. What makes you say that? Asked Aizawa, sounding as bored as ever. Deku bit at his lip a little before continuing. Just look at me. I'm still tiny. I'm still weak. I've strongly gained any extra skills since my time on the streets. I'm even too stupid to remember my lessons now. Now I'm trying to add more. It's impossible, Deku yelled again. Aizawa stayed silent, waiting for him to finish. How the hell can I be a hero? How the hell am I supposed to achieve anything? A quirkless kid with a FC King criminal record. It's pathetic. I'm pathetic. Deku was breathing heavily, fists clenched as he studied the floor. Aizawa looked the boy up and down before turning away from him. Follow me, brat. What? Why? Aizawa didn't answer, forcing the child to just do as he was told. Aizawa led the green-eyed boy to the main sitting room and told him to wait, disappearing into the study for a few minutes. A few of the teachers were lounging around the room, merely glancing at the boy before returning to what they were doing previously, working on grades or planning for the final exams, most likely. Aizawa re-emerged from the study, now carrying a thick manila folder. He led the boy up the stairs and into Deku's own room and into the bathroom. Take off your shirt. What? Deku stuttered out. Take off your shirt, Aizawa said again, pausing between each word. Why? Aizawa gave him a look that made Izuku immediately remove his shirt. Look at yourself, Aizawa said, motioning towards the mirror. Izuku complied, but didn't see anything of note. Aizawa sighed and opened the folder. This, Aizawa said, nodding towards the folder, is a copy of your complete medical history, starting from the time you were placed in the system. Aizawa shuffled some of the pages, eventually coming to a stop. He took out a stack of papers and spread them out on the counter. These are your records as of entering UA. Along with a few pages full of written information, there were pictures of an unconscious Izuku, propped up in a hospital bed. Aizawa tapped the first of the photos. We were required to take pictures of you when you came, making note of any injury on your body. These were taken when you were knocked out due to the fever. The photo depicted a half-naked Izuku, lying flat on the hospital bed with enrollment 4 sticking from his arm and an oxygen mask covering half of his face. His skin was pale, blotched with purple and blue bruises. The boy in the picture was extremely malnourished, ribs protruding from his chest. Patient is severely malnourished and shows signs of long-term dehydration. Aizawa read from the paper. Patient weighs 33.83 kilograms, 74.59 pounds. Patient shows signs of long-term starvation resulting in mass and muscle reduction. Aizawa continued, handing the next picture to the boy. This photo was of Izuku's back, Aizawa holding him upright in the background. More bruises littered the small back along with webbed scars from long ago. The boy's backbone was prominent in the photo, casting shadows on the mottled skin. The following photo showed Izuku's face, the eyes sunken in and skin sallow. Under his eyes were deep shadows made only darker by the near-blue tint of his lips. Patient's bones are decayed from lack of vitamins, showing signs of severe and long-term abuse. Current fractures, 32. Current breaks, none. The other photos were close-up pictures of the many scars that littered his body, but Aizawa didn't hand those over, his point having already been made. "Do you want me to continue?" the man asked. Izuku shook his head. "Now look in the mirror again," Aizawa commanded. Izuku did as he was told, and found a completely different person staring back at him. Tan, freckled skin looked healthy over a lithe but fit body. His face was full, lips pink, and, though the circles under his eyes were still present, they were nearly non-existent. His ribs were no longer visible, replaced with a set of abs, and, when he turned, his backbone was revealed to have faded beneath muscle and body fat. His arms were no longer stick-thin and his hands weren't skeletal-like any longer either. Despite the constant sparring and training he was performing, the bruises on his body were few and lightly colored in comparison to those in the photos. Izuku would have brushed this off, but he was pretty sure he hadn't been in any major fights for a few weeks before he came to UA, meaning that his body had maintained the discoloration from being unable to heal. Not to mention, Aizawa and the other teachers certainly didn't pull their punches enough to keep him from bruising during sparring sessions, meaning that Izuku's body was simply keeping up with the injuries. "This is from your most recent checkup with Recovery Girl," Aizawa stated before reading off of a different page. "Patient weighs 56.63 kilograms, 124.84 pounds. Healthy weight for height and age. Patient is no longer suffering from side effects of the long-term malnourishment. Patient's vitals are normal. Patient's diet is suitable for the level of physical activity performed." Izuku fidgeted slightly, looking between the pictures still displayed on the counter and the reflection of his current self. "Now look me in the eyes and tell me that you haven't made progress," Aizawa said. I can't." "Why not?" "Because it's not true." Izuku met Aizawa's eyes. "I have made progress. A lot of it." "Damn right, brat. Now stop moping. It doesn't matter if you pass the entrance exam or not. That test doesn't determine how far you have come or how strong you are. I've seen what you can do for other people. I've seen you help your community, and that was before your body was physically fit. You will be a hero someday if you really want it. I don't give a shit what anyone else says, not even you. If I have to drag you in here every day and force you take a look at this progress, I will. Do you understand, problem child?" Izuku smiled at the underground hero before nodding slowly. "Good. Now take a shower. Dinner will be ready when you are done." With that, Aizawa turned and left. Izuku stood before the entrance of the building he had visited every day for the past 3 months. Yet, the building felt foreign and much larger than normal. Students walked up to the entrance, moving around the frozen boy. Some were standing tall, confident in their abilities, whilst others shuffled quickly to the doors, heads held low, preparing for the failure that 98% of the test takers would face. As the students moving into the main hall began to thin, Izuku took a breath. "One step at a time," he thought to himself. "I know I can pass the written portion. Focus on that first." Just as the boy was reaching the steps, someone ran into his shoulder, causing Izuku to stumble forward, almost falling on his face, if not for his reflexes. "Watch it," a blonde growled out at him, red eyes glaring daggers at Izuku. "Yuri, the one who ran into me," Izuku said back, anger flaring past the slight panic from being touched. The boy hissed at him and continued on his way. "Wow. I really hope I don't get put in a class with him." A girly voice piped from his side. "So rude," she pouted her lip, looking at the retreating back of the boy. The girl was shorter than Izuku with shoulder-length brown hair. She turned towards Izuku with a bright smile lighting her features. "I hope there aren't many students like him." Izuku nodded at her, smiling shyly. "I'm Uraraka Ochaku," the girl said while combing a hand through her hair. "Midoriya Izuku," he replied. "Well then, Midoriya-san. It's a pleasure to meet you. We better get inside before the tests start." "Huh?" she said, her smile growing wider. Izuku agreed, and followed the girl up the steps and into the building. The written portion of the exam wasn't overly difficult. Each question was hero-themed, incorporating the 4 main subjects of study plus English language, a requirement at UA. Izuku had struggled on only a few of the questions with the exception of the English language portion, which Izuku was positive he flunked. However, he only needed an overall score of 70% to pass. Once all of the paper tests had been collected, Present Mike walked on the stage at the front of the room. The voice hero introduced himself and reviewed the next portion of the exam. Izuku had been correct, they were to battle robots. As Present Mike explained the point system, butterflies erupted in Izuku's stomach. I have to pass, he thought desperately, taking in the information Present Mike provided. If I don't pass, I may as well dig a grave now. Then again, Nezu would probably bury him with his schoolwork, forcing him to do his studies in the afterlife. Sit, sit, sit. He was nervous. Why, though? He had been in more serious situations before. This was nothing compared to this. Excuse me, sir, but I have a question, a boy said from a few rows ahead, drawing Izuku's attention. Hit me, Mike said, pointing at the boy, causing a spotlight to fall onto the blue-haired middle schooler with glasses. On the printout, you've listed 4 types of villains, not 3. With all due respect, if this is an error on official UA materials, it is shameful. Izuku quirked an eyebrow at the kid, a little frustrated at his interruption of Mike. Didn't he realize that Mike would leave the biggest surprise for last? We are exemplary students. We expect the best from Japan's most notable school. A mistake such as this won't do. Mike looked as if he was about to reply when the boy kept going, turning in Izuku's direction. Additionally, you with the unkempt hair, the boy said, pointing directly at the green-eyed child. You've been muttering this entire time. Stop that. If you can't bother to take this seriously, then leave. You are distracting the rest of us. Izuku shrunk back in his seat, covering his mouth and nodding once at the boy. Present Mike drew the blue-haired boy's attention and explained the 4th robot a 0-pointer. The boy thanked Mike and sat back down. That's all I've got for you today, Mike said, beginning his closing statements. I'll sign off with a little present. A sample of our school motto as General Napoleon Bonaparte once laid down. A true hero is one who overcomes life's misfortunes. He paused, eyes scanning the crowd and locking with Izuku's for a brief second. Namichimum, that's a tasty soundbite now. Are you ready to go beyond? Let's hear a plus ultra. Present Mike left the room, and the mass of students separated into different groups, making their way to the designated testing sites. Izuku was placed in the group, heading towards Battle Center B. The brown-haired girl from earlier was in this group, along with the blue-haired boy who had scolded him. Izuku hoped neither would come up to him as he didn't think he was currently capable of speaking. The students stood around the closed gates, a mixture of nerves represented in the crowd. None of them shook in their shoes like Izuku currently did. The boy took some deep breaths to calm his nerves and drew on the confident, angry, and snarky side of himself. As soon as the gates opened, Deku ran. He heard Mike call out to the other students that there were no countdowns in real battles, and soon had other students close on his heels, some even passing him thanks to their quirks. Underscore 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 Deku took in his surroundings. The buildings in this portion of the facility were too tall to scale, so he moved off the main course towards the outer sections of the battlefield. He could hear explosions and crashes as students began taking down the bots. A 1-pointer stopped him, and the eye glue, starting to emit a stun laser. Deku unnecessarily rolled out of the way as a blonde boy hit the bot with a laser from his belly button. Deku thanked the boy as he continued on his way towards the shorter buildings. As soon as he could, Izuku climbed to a vantage point and scouted out the area. There were very few students in this area, allowing Izuku to take advantage of as many bots as he possibly could. A 3-pointer and a 1-pointer crossed paths at an intersection not far from Deku. The freckled-faced boy ran toward the 1-pointer, gaining its attention. This bot was slow, but its laser would most likely knock him out if he was caught in it. As soon as the bot locked onto its target, Izuku ran towards the three-pointer. He zigzagged, jumping off the walls and over obstacles to avoid the laser. The three-pointer turned as soon as it registered a commotion. This bot was much faster than the first and locked onto Deku quickly, shooting its own weapons at Deku. The boy barely had a second to jump out of the way. Luckily, his plan had played out in his favor, both bots taking each other's hits, nearly destroying one another. The three-pointer still made to move, so Deku ran around to its back, using a knife he had been allowed to bring in to pop open the control panel. After a brief inspection of the wires, Deku pulled two, and the bot went dead. The boy breathed a sigh of relief as he climbed back up to his vantage point. 4 points wasn't much, but at least he wouldn't be exiting the exam with none. As time passed, Deku racked up a few more points, now having a total of 9. The boy knew he wouldn't gain enough points to pass within the time limit, but continued on, hoping for some miracle. With 5 minutes remaining of the exam, Deku headed back towards the main street, where more bots were located. On his way, he passed a student cowering behind a faux dumpster as a three-pointer passed. Unfortunately for the kid, the bot noticed him and took aim. In an instant, Deku charged at the kid and body slammed him to the ground, away from the robot's attack. "The hell are you doing?" the green-haired child asked. I can't do this. I wasn't prepared. The boy was cut off as another attack was made, forcing Deku to manhandle the boy out of the way. "Damn it," Deku cried as his arm was grazed by the blast. Deku took the other boy's hand and dragged him down a different alley, trying to buy time. This was not ideal. No other bots were around to pull off his first stunt, and Deku couldn't take the time to go around behind the bot, as he also tried to protect the boy who was now crying beside him. What to do? What to do? Damn it, if only he had a quirk or something that could buy them time in some way. Wait, maybe I do. Izuku moved the boy out of the way again, using a car as a shield. "What's your quirk?" Deku asked the boy quickly. The boy looked stunned, his mouth quivering. Deku focused on the boy for a split second, recognizing his fear. "Hey, it's going to be okay. They would never actually let these things hurt us. We are just kids." The reassurance wasn't as helpful as it could have been as the three-pointer attacked one more, making the duo run. It's useless. It won't. Trust me, I know useless," Deku said hurriedly. "If you have a quirk, it can be beneficial in some way. I just need to know what it is." I can control the temperature. Like, I can make things hot or cold when I touch them. But if I go to the extremes, then it becomes really strong to move. And it's easier to use on myself. But I don't really see how that will help. These things don't stay still long enough for me to get near them." Deku looked at the kid in awe and then in anger. "You have that awesome of a quirk, and you were FC King cowering behind a trash can." The boy jolted at his words, shocked at the compliment and hurt by the following observation. "How the hell do you think these things can see us? They read our body temperature and key in on sudden movements." Deku pulled the child to the side again as the bot attacked once more. "I need you to lower your temperature to match the surroundings," Deku said. "What? Why?" "To hide you." "But what about you?" "That's the next part. I'll distract the bot and draw its attention. It will still be able to see you move, but should focus on me more since I'll have a heat signature." Izuku took a breath and looked back at the bot that was coming towards their direction. "I'm going to move it close enough for you to put your hands on it. Don't heat it up, it will explode. Instead, cool it down as quickly as possible. I'll pull its wires once it has slowed." The other boy nodded, and immediately, the boy's skin began turning a shade of blue, indicating he was using his quirk. The plan actually played out nicely, up until Izuku pulled the robot's wiring. As soon as the robot died, it tilted forward, toward the boy who had his hands on it. Deku cursed, pulling back on the bot with his body weight, redirecting the fall. Unfortunately, that meant the bot landed on him. The green-eyed child cried out as the weight of the bot landed on top of him. "Are you okay?" the boy questioned. "Help me get it off." Deku groaned in response. The boy nodded and did his best to push the robot off. The shift of weight dug into Deku's hip, and the boy groaned again. Said, I'm going to FC King kill that rat for making this stupid-ass test. The boy looked at Deku confused, but finally managed to heave the robot up enough for Deku to squirm out from underneath it. Deku checked his physical injuries, noting that it hurt to walk on his right leg, now though he could still manage. The other boy was uninjured. Keep your temperature low. Go to the front gate and stay as still as possible. You should be fine. Deku looked around and noticed that they were only a street over from the main area. Keep to the back streets. There are bound to be loads of bots just one street over, and you don't want to get caught in that. The boy nodded, thanking Deku tearfully before running off in the direction of the entrance. As Izuku ran back towards the main street, the ground beneath him shook. A giant robot emerged from over the buildings, each step causing mass destruction. The zero-pointer. Kids ran as fast as they could away from the machine, and Present Mike yelled out that there was only 2 minutes left from somewhere in the background. Deku hurt and dreaded the idea of running, but turned to do so anyway. Then he heard the cry, and just like a few minutes ago, Deku unconsciously turned to go help the person in need. It was the girl from before stuck underneath a mountain of debris. Deku started towards her, trying to come up with a plan, but not knowing how. At that moment, the blue-haired boy from before passed by him, running from the zero-pointer as well. The kid looked to have a speed quirk engines sticking out of his calves. An idea hit Deku, and the boy called out, "Glasses engine guy." The kid faltered and looked back at him. "She needs help, we can't just leave her," Deku called out, running as quickly as his body allowed towards the girl who was only a minute away from being crushed by the zero-pointer. "I need your quirk to help, we need to get the rubble off and pull her free. You can speed her to safety." Deku didn't look back to see if the boy was following. Whether he helped or not, Deku would try his best to free the girl. Uraraka whimpered when Deku arrived and started pulling stones off of her. I can help." She ground out, "I can make things float. Just tell me what to touch so I don't make things worse." Deku nodded and instructed her towards the largest boulder that was pinning her. He moved a few rocks before telling her to activate the quirk. In an instant, she was free. Deku looked up just in time to see the zero-pointer's foot coming down on them. He leaned over the girl protectively only to feel his stomach jerk as a hand wrapped around his torso and pulled him and the girl to safety. The engine quirk kid had come to help. "Time, Present," Mike shouted, causing the zero-pointer to freeze, and then move back, away from the applicants. Underscore 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 recovery girl now roamed the testing site, checking on those who were injured. The engine quirk kid, who had introduced himself as Ida, was standing next to Deku and Uraraka, who were both sitting. "That was incredibly noble of you," the boy shouted, his arm chopping the air. "Though it was irresponsible to put yourself in harm's way when you were already injured." Deku wasn't listening to the kid, opting to scold himself on his minimal points instead. He had heard the others speaking, most having points in the mid-20 range. 12 measly points. "There is no way I'll pass. I'm so going to regret this. I should have trained stronger. I didn't take into account the time limit." Deku thought to himself angrily. "Oh dear. I hope neither of you are injured too terribly," Recovery Girl said as she stepped up to Uraraka and Deku. The boy looked up at her. "Her leg was crushed by rubble," Deku said, pointing at the girl beside him. "Heal her first, it looks painful." The woman nodded and made quick work of the girl's injury. Ida led the healed and suddenly sleepy girl to the entrance. Recovery Girl turned towards him and clicked her tongue lightly. "I hope you received these injuries simply because you couldn't get out of the way. If you got these by simply being careless or doing something stupid, Aizawa will be upset. He's going to be upset anyway. I definitely failed." Chio sighed, shaking her head. "What's injured, Sonny?" "My right hip. I don't know what's wrong though. Might be dislocated, but it's more likely that it is fractured or broken." Deku offered his hand to Chio, so that she could use her quirk on him. It was one of the only places he felt comfortable being touched in such a way. The woman nodded, taking the offered appendage and kissing it. The pain in Deku's body eased slightly, but didn't completely dissipate. Chiyo motioned for a medbot. I want to check you over before healing you completely. After the healing sessions you've had in the past month while training, I'm afraid to overwork your body. If the hip is broken, you may need to stay a night or two in the infirmary. Deku nodded, his eyes growing heavy as a deep sleepiness set in. Underscore 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 Izuku had luckily not broken his hip. However, the fracture was deep and painful. It only took Recovery Girl one more healing session to put him right, though she made him spend the night in the infirmary regardless. Izuku couldn't meet Aizawa-sensei's eyes when the man came to pick him up, and the exhausted teacher didn't seem to mind. I knew it. He is disappointed. Izuku had thought to himself deprecatingly on their silent trek back to the dorm. Izuku went straight to his room once they entered the blue doors and didn't come out until he was forced to come down for dinner. The teachers were all still staying at the dorms preparing for the upcoming final exams. Yet, no one sat at the long dining table when Izuku arrived. Lunch rush made you dinner, brat, Aizawa said, placing a bowl of katsudon on the table. It's your favorite. Thanks, Izuku murmured, taking his seat. Aizawa stared at him, eyes piercing the small boy, an unreadable expression on the hero's face. Then, the man turned and left the room. He can't even be in the same room as me. I'm not as good as he had hoped. I don't have nearly enough potential. Izuku ate silently, not even tasting the food. He made sure to eat the entire bowl before placing it in the sink to wash in the morning. Halfway to the kitchen door, Izuku turned around and went back to wash the dish. Maybe if I try stronger in other areas, they won't be as disappointed. You're washing your dishes at night? Kame-sensei asked as she entered the room. Izuku jumped at her voice and looked at her warily. Yeah, I thought. Izuku shook his head, stopping himself from saying anything damning. I just decided to. And maybe because I've been cooped up. I'm antsy. Cham, you need to relax as you can. I'd offer to let you train, but I think Shota would kill me if I let you so soon after being hurt. Not that a small whipping wouldn't be appreciated. The woman smirked and Izuku blushed at the implication of her words. It's okay, he said. I need to read SS some anyway. The woman looked at him uncertainly before nodding slowly. You all right, Izuku? Are you still in pain? Izuku turned to place the bowl in the cabinet, avoiding Kame-sensei's gaze. I'm fine, he said. He cringed at the unconvincing waver in his voice. Putting a smile on his face and turning to look at the woman, Izuku tried again. Really, Kame-sensei? No pain. I'm okay. Kayama hummed lowly, disbelief crossing her features. Roman 2 just need to catch up since I'm behind now. That's all. I'm going to my room now, Izuku said, passing her in the doorway. Izuku actively avoided the teachers the next day as well, remaining in his room to do homework instead of using the teacher's lounge on the main campus. He didn't complain during his English lessons with Yamada, and willingly agreed to not being able to train for the day. Recovery Girl wanted him to have one more good night's sleep before starting the intensive physical activity again. Underscore 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 Izuku was meandering around the halls during one of his free times, not paying attention to where his legs were taking him. As he turned a corner, the boy ran into someone, stumbling back from the impact. Oh, Midoriya Shonen. A deep voice greeted. Looking up, Izuku found the form of the deflated All Might standing before him, a trickle of blood seeping from the corner of his mouth. All Might, Izuku replied. Ah, Just call me Toshinori when I'm in this form. Izuku nodded. There was an awkward silence between the two for a while, both unsure what they should do. Walk away. Make small talk? You're on campus? Izuku finally asked. Yes. I was filming the acceptance videos. Toshinori said, a small smile on his lips. You know who passed? I know who passed the hero exams. Toshinori clarified. Izuku stared at the man, wondering if he should ask about his own results. Did you? Was there? Izuku took a breath. Did I pass? Toshinori shifted uncomfortably, one hand rubbing the back of his neck. I'm not supposed to tell you the results yet, kiddo. Izuku turned his gaze to the floor. So I didn't pass. Tears sprung up in his eyes, and the boy roughly wiped them away. Toshinori panicked a little, arms starting to wave in front of him erratically. I didn't say that, I just said I couldn't tell you. Don't cry, kid. You did fine. Izuku glared up at the man. Don't lie to me, the boy snarled. Don't F-seeking lie just to make this easier for you. That's cruel. I'm not lying. You passed, Midoriya Shounen. Toshinori said. I just finished your acceptance video about an hour ago. Izuku searched the man's face for any signs of betrayal, but found none. Seriously? He asked, awestruck. I really wasn't supposed to tell you. Toshinori said, grinning slightly at the boy. But I didn't. I only had, how? The skeletal man shifted uncomfortably again. Maybe you should wait for your letter. No way, Izuku said determinedly. You can't just leave me wondering. I only made 12 points. How did I pass? Almost everyone else had at least 20. It makes no sense. Tell me, All Might. At that moment the bell rang, and the man scrambled to shush the small boy. Toshinori. It's Toshinori when I'm like this. Deku looked at the other students now filling the halls. A smirk played on his lips when he looked back at the #1 hero. You have 5 seconds to tell me before I accidentally slip up again. The already pale man paled more, his shoulders slumping. Follow me. I'll tell you when we reach the teacher's lounge. It'll be more private there. Deku shrugged and followed the man. Aizawa sighed as he sat at his desk in the teacher's lounge. The kid was nowhere to be found, probably on a walk, during his 30-minute break. Izuku had been acting gloomy for days, most likely believing that he had failed. Of course, Nezu had forbidden the teachers from letting on that he had passed before he received his acceptance letter. Aizawa rubbed his temples, thinking of the defeated expression that had been permanently set on the child's face. The worst part, however, was that the child had been smiling falsely at them to ease their worry. Considering how much Izuku despised liars, he lied a lot even without speaking. As Aizawa pulled up his plans for the final exams, Toshinori entered with Izuku trailing behind him. For the first time in days, the kid had a spark in his eyes and a true smile on his face. His pleased expression was laced with confusion, however. Toshinori looked guilty when he saw Aizawa. Hello, Aizawa-san. The man greeted. I didn't mean to let it slip. Let what slip? Aizawa growled. That I passed. Izuku said excitedly, his face lighting up. Why didn't you tell me, Aizawa-sensei? I thought for sure that I had failed. I thought. The boy stopped, his face falling. I thought you were disappointed in me. Aizawa glared at the blonde man, pulling out his phone and texting Nezu, ensuring that the blame wouldn't be placed on himself. We weren't supposed to tell you. Just because you live here isn't supposed to mean you get special treatment. You were supposed to find out along with everyone else. Izuku grinned shyly at him before turning back to All Might. So how? How did I pass with only 12 points? Toshinori sighed, moving to sit in a chair. You'll find out when you get your acceptance letter. Aizawa said. What? That's not fair. I already know I passed, so just tell me how I did it. No. Aizawa-sensei. No. Deku pouted his lip, turning his eyes on All Might. Toshinori-sensei, he asked, eyes slightly widening in a puppy dog look. It's not like you'll get in any more trouble with Nezu for giving me details. You already let it slip. Problem child. Aizawa warned. Keep asking, and I will schedule extra lessons with Yamada. Deku scrunched his face in disgust. finally backing down. This is so unfair, he mumbled, going back to his desk in the corner. Thanks, Aizawa-san, All Might said gratefully. You wouldn't need to thank me if you had a backbone, Aizawa grumbled. Izuku shuffled some papers around on his desk before grabbing a pencil and tapping it on the table, acting as if he were bored. The rhythmic tapping was aggravating, and Aizawa rolled his eyes at the Morse code the boy was tapping. Of course the kid knew Morse code. Toshinori's eyes widened as his mind translated the tapping. I get another break in an hour. Eraser will be back in class. Count it as payment for your secret. Stop that incessant tapping, Aizawa said, raising his voice. You are grounded for threatening a teacher. And you can also have a second warning for not listening when I've told you to stop asking questions about your results. Deku's eyes went wide, and he sat his pencil down. I didn't. What are you talking about? That's a warning for lying. Do you really think I wouldn't know Morse code, brat? Deku bit the inside of his cheek, eyes turning down once more. He grumbled at Aizawa. I was just going to say that I didn't threaten anyone. Aizawa gave up on his final exam planning. Toshinori, the man said flatly, although he was facing the boy on the opposite side of the room. All Might jumped, but turned his full attention on the man. What would you say is the biggest threat to your safety and the stabilization of society? We don't need to do this, Aizawa. The kid is just. Answer the question, Aizawa demanded. Obviously. This form, if it got out to the public, to the villains. The small man sighed. With All Might around, crime rates plummet, but if society knew of this weakness, the peace would not hold for long. Aizawa glared daggers at the small boy, who now looked at his desk in shame. Do you still believe that what you said wasn't a threat? I didn't mean it that way, Deku said softly, shifting uncomfortably. You meant to control someone's actions in exchange for a secret. That's called blackmail, problem child. It's harmful. You meant to cause harm. Deku froze in his chair, still not looking at the teacher. He's just a kid, Aizawa. You don't need to be so harsh. I knew this type of thing might happen when I started sharing my secret, or when it started to get out. Aizawa continued to glare at Deku. Okay, the boy said, wilting. Underscore 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 underscore. He really hadn't seen it as a threat. Or maybe the boy had simply not thought of the consequences that would occur if All Might's secret got out. Deku didn't completely understand his bitter feelings towards the man, or the anger he felt looking at the smaller form. He only knew that the #1 hero lied every time that he did hero work. He only knew that All Might, Izuku's past idol, was nothing more than a fraud who smiled prettily at the cameras, as if that made a difference. Something about learning of All Might's weakness had flipped a switch in Deku's mind. The all-powerful and great hero wasn't really strong. He was weak. He couldn't actually save everybody, as the smile on his face suggested. With that line of thinking, Deku had only spiraled further down a rabbit hole of dark thoughts. How could he have ever believed that All Might was a great hero? It wasn't like the man did anything different from the other stars. He never walked the slums of the city preventing drug deals and kidnappings. He never stepped in when a child was being beaten by their drunk father. He was never around when a quirkless child was scolded for being unable to protect themselves. He probably didn't even realize that those things occurred. These thoughts had been spinning in his mind since his last meeting with the man, and had slowly altered his viewpoint. However, it had never been explored, as All Might hadn't been around until today. Who did it really hurt to use this secret as a means to gain what he wanted? It wasn't like anyone would believe him if he told. Besides, this man didn't deserve the spot of #1. Maybe by bringing up his failures, the man would eventually come to the realization that he was less of a hero than everyone thought he was. Maybe he would finally step down from his podium to apologize for the wrongs he has committed through his lies. But Deku had been an idiot. All Might's secret didn't just affect All Might. By using this against the man, Deku was falling to the level of a villain by using blackmail. How had he not viewed what he was doing as anything other than purposefully trying to harm someone? Even his original idea to make All Might give him free merchandise to sell had been blackmail. FCK. Deku could feel Eraser's eyes on him as he sat stock still staring blankly at his desk as his mind swirled with guilt. This day had gone from bad to wonderful to city in less than 30 minutes and Deku couldn't keep up. Okay, he finally said, hoping it was enough to get the piercing gaze off of his back. I get it. Stop looking at me like that. I won't use this against him ever again. Aizawa continued staring, waiting. For what? But Deku already knew the answer to that question. I'm sorry. I won't do anything like that again, the boy said, hiding his head in his arms. This seemed to appease Aizawa as the man went back to typing on his computer. All Might sat awkwardly, glancing back and forth between Aizawa and Deku, confused and embarrassed by the exchange that had just occurred. Underscore 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 Izuku was grounded for 2 days. He didn't complain, however, as he now understood that the punishment was deserved. The day his punishment was to end, Nezu personally brought him a letter during dinner. I understand that you have already been told your results, but this should clear up any questions you may have, the principal said. Izuku took the letter and excused himself from the table, running up to his room. He had a feeling that he may start mumbling at some point and didn't want Aizawa to scold him. Izuku noted the time and left his door open, as he was still technically grounded for another hour. The letter contained a small circular disc that projected a hologram of All Might in his hero form. It is I, All Might, the hologram boomed, continuing on to explain that he was to be a teacher at UA the following semester. Izuku ignored this part, already knowing the information provided. The man congratulated him on passing the entrance exam, exclaiming that he had earned not only his 12 villain points, but 65 rescue points, as well, putting him in first place, tied with another student. Many students showed great skill and precision when taking down the villain bots. The hologram All Might explained. Some even helped other applicants who struggled to hold their own. However, few students actively sought to help a peer without receiving some sort of benefit to their score. The hologram grinned at him. Not only did you risk your score to save a fellow applicant, you did so on 2 separate occasions. Your score was divided as follows. Villain points, 12. Rescue points, 65. Rescue 1, 25. Rescue 2, 40. Total points, 77. Congratulations, young man, and welcome to your Hero Academia. Hologram All Might stated loudly in closing before the hologram cut out. Izuku sat back in his desk chair, Chato purring and circling around his feet. Rescue points. How had he not thought about rescue points? He's been racking his brain for the past few days, trying to figure out how he could have possibly passed. But rescue points had never crossed it. What determined the amount of points he received for each rescue? Why was there such a gap in points between his first rescue and the second? Who determined the number given? The teachers collectively decide how many points you deserve for each rescue, Nezu said from his doorway. Aizawa-sensei and Yamada-sensei were standing close behind. Can we come in, little listener? Yamada-sensei asked with a smile. I've been dying to talk to you about your test. Izuku nodded his head, motioning the others to sit on the bed if they wanted. Only Nezu and Yamada-sensei accepted the offer. Aizawa-sensei opted to lean against the wall of his room. You did an amazing job, Yamada-sensei screeched happily. Yes, I knew the test would be difficult for you, but you proved me correct in thinking that you would get by, Nezu said with a smirk gracing his lips. To better clarify how the teachers decide on the rescue points, it all depends on the circumstances of the rescue. I wanted to give you way more points for your rescues, little listener, but a few of the other teachers shut me down. Yamada scratched the back of his neck and smiled shyly at the boy. So, why the difference between my first and second rescue? Didn't I do more with my first one? Nezu looked towards Aizawa expectantly, And the black-haired man sighed. Your first rescue was fine, but your attitude negated the emotional state of the student you were trying to help. The kid was scared, and you belittled him for not thinking of ways to use his quirk. You made the child unsure of himself, which is ultimately why he froze at the last second, causing you to pull back on the robot so it wouldn't crush the boy, ultimately injuring yourself. Not only that, but you relied on the other person to help. This would typically be fine if you were to be seen as equals. However, we decided that due to your experience, you were significantly more qualified than the other boy and ought to be graded as such. I don't understand. He chose to take the test, just like me. Yes, but he had changed his mind by the time you found him. Thus, we counted him as an unplanned civilian infiltrant. By first belittling, and then relying on an unstable victim, you put both him and yourself at more risk. If you were to do so in the field, you could have been sued should something have gone wrong. Thus, you only received 25 points. I really fought stronger to get you more, Yamada-sensei said. The way you used the kid's quirk on the spur of the moment was amazing. I think your quick thinking should have been better rewarded. In fact, half the teachers thought so. Nezu was the tiebreaker. I know that I can expect more from you. Your previous experience should have influenced your charisma in the field. You simply didn't take advantage of it at that time, Nezu stated cheerfully. Okay, but my, charisma. I didn't really use it the second time around either, Izuku said, hoping they couldn't take points away now that he had his letter. Nezu cackled as Aizawa-sensei started speaking again. You gained more points the second time around for a number of reasons. 1. You were already injured, but ran to help anyway. 2. You faced the 0-pointer, and would not have gained anything by helping the girl. 3. You didn't criticize her for getting caught. And 4. You were smiling. Little listener, Yamada-sensei cheered. What? Izuku asked, confused. You eased her worry through your expression, Aizawa-sensei said, deadpan. It is a hero's job to protect and reassure, Yamada-sensei said in a calmer voice. When the robot went to crush you, you leaned over her, shielding her view and smiled, kiddo. Without words, you told her that all would be okay. But we still would have been crushed if Iida-san hadn't been there. What help is a smile in the face of impending death? When people feel reassured, they feel more powerful. There are 2 reasons why it is important to make a person feel calm in the face of mortal danger. The first is a survival theory. It is the idea that a person is more likely to survive when they feel more positive. It is why doctors sometimes don't perform major surgeries on patients who feel negative about the surgery or patients who no longer wish to live. The second is more morbid, but important all the same. Heroes cannot save everyone. That is a fact. However, we can control how they feel at the time of death to some extent. Tell me, if you were to suddenly die, would you rather be in a positive mood or a negative one? What would you want your last memories to be? Izuku thought for a moment about what was said and shrugged his shoulders. I don't think it would matter. I'm dead either way, and I don't even think you would have memories after death. Sheesh, Shota. We need to separate the 2 of you. You are rubbing off on him negatively. Yamada-sensei pouted. Izuku, other people don't see the last moments of life in the same way. It is comforting to think that you will die happy. That is why so many people wish to die in their sleep at an old age. What happier time would there be? Izuku nodded his head at that logic. So that's why I got so many more points that time. Because I smiled. Yep, Nezu giggled. All Might was quite impressed with you. He commented that it was extremely difficult to keep up that look in the face of your own death. Oh, All Might smiles too, doesn't he? Isn't he why I started practicing the smile behind my mask? For when I wouldn't have to hide my face anymore? I guess the hero worship paid off. You could have gotten up to 60 points if you weren't such an idiot, however, Aizawa-sensei said, shaking Izuku from his thoughts. Shota, just let him have this moment. No. Izuku looked at Aizawa-sensei, nervous about the scolding he felt coming on. If it were up to me, you would have gotten less points the second time around. There is a fine line between nobility and idiocracy. You were already injured, yet you ran head first at that thing. But I thought that added to my points. The other teachers seem to think that self-sacrifice is the most noble of actions. But if you ask me, that's bullshit. Why kill yourself for one person in the current moment when you could save hundreds in the future? The only reason I let it slide is because you asked the other boy, Ida, for help. All Might and Shota had a major fight about this. Yamada-sensei whispered to Izuku. Aizawa-sensei glared at the man. Not only did you run in there with only a small chance of backup, but you didn't even adapt as well as you could. You knew the girl had an anti-gravity quirk, so why did it not cross your mind to give her the chance to touch the robot should it get close enough to step on you? You covered her with your body as a shield, but that would do little when about to be crushed. Next time, think before you act. You have the brains, so use them. Aizawa-sensei huffed. Well, next time I'm about to be crushed by a giant robot. I'll keep that in mind. Deku snarked. I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one to falter under pressure though. Or do you not remember when you took that NIF? Shut it, problem child. I am the teacher here, not you. Aizawa-sensei said, cutting Deku off with a small glare. When did you get stabbed? Yamada-sensei asked, shock and anger filtering through his voice. Nezu laughed hysterically, making the other three quiet down. That is the way of heroes. The principal said. Jumping in without thinking is what makes a good pro. It is what all of my teachers have in common to some extent. It is what I look for in my students. That is why, instead of removing points for the supposedly rash behavior, we added them. Nezu wiped a tear from his eyes and jumped off the bed. Any more questions, Midoriya-kun? Izuku shook his head. Wonderful. Then we shall take our leave. I will get with you the Friday before the new term to discuss your split schedule. Have a good night. Nezu waved as he walked out of the room. Yamada-sensei followed with a smile and wave as well. Aizawa-sensei stayed. Izuku looked at him and shifted uncomfortably. Please don't keep lecturing me. I have a lot of issues with your entrance exam. Deku pouted a lip and looked away from the man. But I'm also proud of you. Considering your young age and relative inexperience, you did well, brat. Izuku turned back to the retreating man in awe, CHST feeling lighter than it had in a long time. Izuku was officially a student of Class 1C with special privileges to participate in the afternoon classes of the hero and support courses. Every morning, Izuku would take his traditional classes with the general studies class. Thus, that is where he found himself on the morning of the first day of the new term. Opening the door to the classroom, Izuku was met with a multitude of students, some sitting on desks, some huddled together in groups, and others sitting at their desks quietly overlooking the daily schedule. The seat assignments were listed on the blackboard. His seat, #17, was in the second row from the front and right beside the window. Izuku took his seat, feeling unnerved by all the students he would most likely be expected to associate with. Although he had been at UA for a few months, the other students mostly left him to his own devices with the exception of the 3 third years that he ate lunch with. Even then, Tagata, Nijire, and Tamaki never sought him out outside of the lunchroom. A boy sat to his right, his head resting on his arms, light purple hair sticking out in all directions. The boy seemed to be asleep, but Izuku had a feeling that he was most likely faking, similar to what Aizawa-sensei sometimes does with his students. Good morning, class, Cementos greeted, walking towards the teacher's podium at the front of the room. I am Ishiyama Ken, your homeroom teacher. Please take your seats. The class hurried to sit in their predetermined spots, unsure how strict Cementos was as a teacher yet. Instead of calling roll, I would like each of you to stand and introduce yourselves. I will begin. I am a pro hero and go by the name Cementos. Feel free to call me by either my hero name or my given name. I am your homeroom teacher and will be for the next 3 years. I also teach modern literature and aid in the training of the hero course students. It is a pleasure to meet everyone. Cemento-sensei finished and motioned towards the kid in seat #1 to begin. The boy had dark brown hair and beady eyes. He quietly introduced himself as Abe Heidke from Yomhei Middle School. His quirk allows him to turn into a badger at will. Though the longer he stays transformed, the more he loses his human intellect. Once Abe finished introducing himself, he sat and the boy behind him stood. This boy was much more firm in his introduction. He seemed haughty and proud. Anzai Katsuru was from a high-ranking middle school in Tokyo. He had a quirk called sensory share. The boy didn't go into detail, but his CHST inflated in pride when he spoke its name. Izuku listened intently to each of his classmates. By the third student, he had pulled out one of his notebooks and had begun taking notes on each student and writing down their quirks. Some, such as a girl who reminded Izuku of Kame-sensei, gave in-depth information on their quirks and how they work. Others opted to simply give the name of their quirk and sit down. The most vague, however, had been the boy immediately to Izuku's right. The boy's name was Shinsu Hitoshi, and the only information he gave in reference to his quirk was that it was mentally based. A few of the other students looked at him curiously, but didn't interrupt the flow of introductions. When the person in front of Izuku stood to introduce himself, Izuku suddenly became very anxious. What was he supposed to say? He couldn't say he was quirkless. He didn't want to ruin his chances at friends on his first day. Maybe he could get away with saying nothing. No, he doubted that. He needed to come up with something quickly or... Cemento-sensei cleared his throat, drawing Izuku's attention. The student in front of him had sat down, and now the whole class was looking at him. Izuku stood shakily. Midoriya Izuku. And nice to meet you. Then he sat back down. What Sakis and the student like Kame-sensei called from the back, her high voice making Izuku flinch. You have to give more than that. I gave you all a book. These vague answers are not satiating my curiosity. Sakis-san, please sit back down. Students may give as much or as little information as they desire. All I really ask is that you give a name for your classmates to recognize you by. Cemento-sensei said calmly. The girl sat down with a pout, glancing between Izuku and a few of the other students who had given vague answers. Izuku's mind was whirling at being called out. He didn't do well with people his own age. He preferred adults. They were predictable and set in their ways. When the freckled-faced boy came out of his thoughts, he had missed the next two people's introductions, catching only the final student midway through his introduction. Once introductions were complete, the class was led to the auditorium in which the written portion of the entrance exam had been conducted. The traditional speeches were monotonous, and Izuku ended up doodling in the journal he brought instead of listening to the teachers who he already knew introduce themselves. After the entrance ceremony, the students gathered in the cafeteria for lunch. Yo, Midoriya, a voice shouted as Izuku attempted to find a seat. Miriosan and the others didn't have this lunch period. The voice that called out to him was a student from his class, Anzai-san. This boy had sharp features and was on the taller side. He held himself confidently, though Izuku thought it edged on CCKY. Regardless of the less than positive energy Izuku felt about Anzai-san, he made his way over to the other boy. Anzai sat with a few others from their class, already drawing a crowd of followers. Hello, Anzai-san, Izuku said when he came near. Sit. Sit, a girl with bright blonde hair with colorful stripes running through it said excitedly. Sano-san, Izuku reminded himself. Thanks, Izuku mumbled. His anxiety was riding high, and his more confident persona opted not to show up. Not that the Deku side of him was ever available when dealing with peers. We were just talking about our classmates. We have a lot of pretty cool people in our class, don't we? Another girl, Onasan, asked. Izuku nodded his head and took a bite of his food. It's a shame you didn't tell us more, huh? Anzai-san asked, shifting closer to Izuku. Izuku backed away and smiled warily at the boy. I don't like talking about him and myself, he mumbled out. Are you shy? Sano-san gushed. Izuku reddened a bit, but didn't respond, opting to take another bite of food instead. The students continued to ask Izuku questions, each one that was too deep being deflected by the boy. It was obviously beginning to irk some of the others, especially Anzai-san. The boy was very clearly the leader of the group, and continued to steer the conversation towards those who he had little information on. Anzai-san was also extremely physically attentive. He hugged the other students, shook their hands, sat close to them. Izuku had continuously moved away from his seemingly unconscious advances all throughout lunch. Near the end of the break, Anzai had cheered loudly at a joke one of the other students had made. He turned towards Izuku and slapped him playfully on the shoulder. Izuku jumped away from the touch, falling off the bench. "Sit sorry," he said quickly at the confused stares that now looked down at him. Roman 2 just. "I don't like being touched. I'm sorry." "No problem, Midoriya, I didn't know. I apologize," Anzai said cheerfully. "You gotta speak up, man. I would have been more cautious, and you wouldn't be on the floor," he laughed, causing the others to do the same. Izuku felt his ears heat up from his blush. After lunch, Izuku was to go see Inui-sensei for therapy. The business and general education students ate first, followed by the hero course and support course students, giving Izuku a break between lunch and his afternoon lessons. During that time, he was to have his therapy sessions. Deku grumbled as he neared the office. Of course his schedule would allow for such a perfect time to have therapy. Inui-sensei focused on his feelings towards being in school for the first time in a few years. Deku mostly joked with the man, not letting on to his true anxiety. After all, Izuku had been taking lessons for the last 3 months. It was stupid of him to be feeling so uncertain. Yet Inui-san kept pushing. In the end, Deku allowed Inui-san to know that he was nervous, but not overly so. After all, everyone was nervous on their first day. Inui-san didn't seem satisfied, but by then, it was time for Izuku's afternoon courses. Underscore 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 Izuku's schedule wasn't overly difficult to understand. In the mornings, he would take his academic classes with 1C. He would then eat lunch with his class, and then go to therapy, a 30-minute session instead of the normal hour. On Mondays and Thursdays, Izuku would go to the support course after therapy. Every other day, it would be the hero course. This, of course, would change based on certain activities, such as field trips or major projects. On Saturdays, Izuku would take his remedial courses with Yamada-sensei and Ectoplasm-sensei, and then have a 1-2-hour session with Inui-san, depending on how long he felt Izuku needed. Thus, after therapy, Izuku headed for the large doors of Class 1E, the support course. Upon entering the room, Izuku was met with chaos. Powerloader-sensei was scolding a pink-haired girl sternly, while a few students mopped up the gallons of water that slicked the floor. Izuku, unsure of what to do, stood by the entrance of the door. The pink-haired girl caught sight of him and jumped up. "Sensei," she squealed. "It seems we have a customer." She ran over to Izuku and began asking hurried questions that Izuku blocked out as he stepped away from the advancing girl. Hatsume-san, Powerloader said sharply. "Give him some space." The girl, Hatsume-san, immediately backed away. Izuku sighed in relief, looking towards Powerloader-sensei in relief. "Class," Powerloader-sensei said, drawing everyone's attention. "This is Midoriya Izuku. He will be participating in the support course part-time on most Mondays and Thursdays." With that, Powerloader-sensei showed Izuku his workstation, and then headed off to help finish the cleanup. "So, you're only part-time?" Hatsume-san asked, coming up on Izuku suddenly. Izuku jumped, and then nodded at the girl. "Why not be a full-time support course student?" she asked, clearly trying to keep her excitement and curiosity at bay. Extenuating circumstances," Izuku provided vaguely. Hatsume-san hummed, and then turned back to her own work. Powerloader-sensei ran his classroom on an experimental-based lesson plan. Students were to create blueprints of a design. Once accepted, they would begin building. If they ran into issues, Powerloader would help them, whilst allowing the students to try their best to figure out solutions. Once completed, Powerloader-sensei would grade the work, make notes on what could be improved, and then give it back. Should an experiment completely flop, Powerloader-sensei would encourage the student to start on a new task and come back to the old one at a later date, either when they were more experienced or they had a clearer mind to work out what went wrong. Overall, Izuku enjoyed the structure. Although Izuku worked well with his hands, he did not do well creating objects off the top of his head. He wasn't creative in that sense. Izuku preferred having a basis to jump off from, which was one of the main reasons he had taken so many of Powerloader-sensei's old blueprints from the trash whenever he lived on the street. Thus, with permission, he used an old blueprint that he still had and began recreating it to morph the idea into something that Izuku was interested in creating. The boy was hoping to create some form of glove in which he could hide knives in. The idea was simple, but the execution was much more complicated than one would first think. Wow, that's a really neat idea. Why wouldn't you want the knives visible, though? Hatsume-san asked, once again invading Izuku's personal space. If you are on the field and want to look non-threatening, it wouldn't be helpful for your hands to be covered in knives. That makes sense. One of my babies from a few years back was a pair of shoes that hid knives in the soles. If you need some help, I can probably think about it during my breaks. Thank you. Roman 2 think I'm okay for now though. I want to try on my own for a bit. Izuku noticed that Hatsume-san rarely sat still. She was creative, having already gotten 3 separate ideas approved and had started working on all of them already. The girl couldn't seem to work on one item for more than 10 minutes at a time. When she became bored with her own work, she would survey the other students, commenting excitedly about their ideas and giving helpful advice or asking for some of her own. Overall, Izuku pegged her as a good person, just overwhelming in large doses. Powerloader Sensei had also seemed to have picked up on this. By the end of class, the man was sitting in the corner of the room with his head in his hands, contemplating the rest of the year with the pink-haired troublemaker. Underscore 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 Midoriya. Anzasen called when the sharply featured boy walked into class the following morning. Izuku had been sitting at his desk, reading one of his books still left on the book list for the past hour, having arrived earlier than everyone except the boy who sat next to him, Shinsu. The freckled-faced child looked up at his name. Anzai was walking over with the same group of 5 students as yesterday, all of whom surrounded his desk. One of them tripped, using Izuku as support to get up before apologizing profusely to him. I'm so sorry, Midoriya-san. I know you don't like being touched. I'm so clumsy. The girl sat 2 seats behind him. Unfortunately, she was one of the students he had spaced out on during the introductions the day before, and he couldn't recall her name. It's okay. It was an accident, he said, still stiff from the sudden tensing of his muscles. Where were you after lunch yesterday? Anzai asks. We all got to show off our quirks in gym. Oh, yeah, it was so fun. We weren't allowed to use quicks at my middle school. But here, they are training us on how to do so safely, one of the girls says excitedly. You just disappeared, man. Were you sick or something? Anzai asks. No, Izuku says. My schedule is just different. Different? A few students ask at the same time. Yeah, I go to other courses in the afternoon. The principal set it up for me. What? That's so cool. So you went to the business course yesterday or something? TH's support course, Izuku replied. Why not just be in the support course then? Goda-san, a buff boy with greasy black hair, asked. Well, I can't, really. Or, I don't want TTTOB. Extenuating circumstances and all. There you go again with the vague answers. Anzasen says with a roll of his eyes. Just tell us. Izuku was saved when Cementos-sensei entered the room to start class. Literature passed quickly and Cementos-sensei had only just left when Ectoplasm-sensei entered the room. Izuku could hear mumbling from a few classmates during the shift, but focused on completing his notes from the previous class. After math was science. More talking ensued during the switch, but no one messed with Izuku during that time. Both classes went smoothly, mostly covering review from middle school work of which Izuku still had fresh in his mind thanks to the remedial lessons. Following science was a 10-minute break, only to be followed by Yamada-sensei's class, English language. Izuku internally groaned, hoping the man would have enough sense not to call on him if he didn't know the answer. The last thing Izuku wanted was for his class to think he was an idiot. However, Izuku had little time to worry over Yamada-sensei's potential actions during the 10 minutes, as the same group of students from that morning crowded his desk again. Oddly, The same girl fell into him once more. Yamasita-kun, she scolded the boy sitting behind Izuku. Please move your bag out of the aisle. Maybe you should just pay attention to your feet, Yokoyama-san. Yamasita replied in a slow, gurgled drawl. Yokoyama-san huffed before looking Izuku in the eyes and apologizing profusely for the second time that day. Beside him, Shinsu stirred slightly in his chair, head on his arms, once more as if trying to sleep. So, Midoriya, we didn't get to finish our talk earlier. You said that you were in the support course or something. Or something, Izuku replied. What's that mean? Yokoyama-san asked sweetly. Izuku tried to think up something to tell them, but a cold wave seemed to settle in his mind, clearing out any excuses, half-truths, and denials. Izuku's mouth answered of its own volition before he could stop it. I'm in 3 courses. Those around his table looked at him confused, and Izuku's eyes widened at his openness. 3 courses? What do you mean? How are you in 3 courses? Yokoyama-san asked, confused. I have a deal with Principal Nezu. Since I passed the entrance qualifications for each section, I am in the general course, support course, and hero course. Izuku clamped a hand over his mouth at that. What the hell? Why am I saying this? Why can't I stop? You're in the hero course? Anzai asked, shocked. Why the hell would you choose to stay in the general education course if you passed the hero exam? Izuku shook his head at the boy, keeping his mouth firmly closed. Come on, Midoriya-kun, Yokoyama-san said. Just tell us. Another wave of cold spread through Izuku's head, and his mouth opened again. I didn't choose to be in the general studies department. I have to be. Why? Yokoyama-san asked. The courts won't let me enter the hero course full time, and I'm only interested in the support course to aid with my hero studies. Izuku felt panic clench in his chest. He couldn't stop talking. Something was wrong. A quirk? Izuku scratched at his wrists nervously and darted his eyes towards the door. Are my 10-minute walks still allowed? The courts? The hell do they have to do with anything? Anzai asked. Is it because of your quirk? Do you have trouble controlling it? Izuku shook his head again. Midoriya-kun, is your quirk dangerous? Yokoyama asked. No. Izuku piped even as he struggled to keep his mouth shut behind his hands. It's Yokoyama-san. I'm only being forced to answer when she speaks. Izuku attempted to stand from his chair to get away, but the other students prevented him from leaving. The freckled-faced child ended up against the window. How much trouble would I be in if I broke another window? What is your quirk, then? Yokoyama-san asked. Izuku's eyes widened, and he fought to not answer. No. Don't tell them they can't know. Not yet. Remember last time? I don't have a quirk. Izuku's mouth stated, fear clearly laced in every syllable. The group that had been murmuring to themselves immediately went quiet at his words. Anzai laughed a little. You can't be serious, he said before turning to Yokoyama-san. I thought you said your quirk made someone tell the truth. It does, Yokoyama-san said, her eyes wide. The group turned back to stare at Izuku. So you really are quirkless, Anzai-san whispered. And they put you in the hero course. What the hell? Did they take pity on you or something? Izuku felt his eyes prickle with tears as he took in the expressions of his classmates. You are done for now. They know. They know how useless you are. Is that why you are only in that course part-time? Because you don't actually measure up? Anzai asked with a biting snigger. Yeah, how come they are letting you in? No offense, but it would be impossible for a quirkless kid to have fought enough robots to pass that test. Yokoyama-san asked. I didn't get in based on bot points. I got in based on rescue points. Izuku immediately answered. A few students laughed nervously around him. Uncomfortable anger, sadness, and confusion filtering the sounds. Rescue points. What? You pushed a few kids out of the way of blasts, and they let you into the hero course. They did take pity on you, Anzai said. How many points did you get? Izuku stared at him, able to keep his mouth shut to his questions. Answer, or I'll just ask Yokoyama-san to ask the question. Izuku glanced at the girl who looked at him curiously. Could he walk around the question if she wasn't the one who asked? I got 77. 12 were from the robots. That would be a no. If he chose to speak, he would only give the direct truth. 77. Seriously. The teachers must have been crying their eyes out after you told some sorry-ass life story for them to give you that many points. It kinda pisses me off. What? Just because I'm not some special case, I don't deserve to be in the hero course. That test was flawed. They didn't even give those of us with a less flashy quirks a chance. But then they go and let you in. The anger behind Anzai's eyes made Izuku shrink in on himself. They looked so much like the kids from his previous schools. Maybe there is more to this story than you think. A deep voice said from behind the group. A few students jumped and turned to look at Shinsu, who was now sitting up. Yua isn't just going to let a helpless kid into the hero course. He obviously proved himself somehow. So why don't you all just go back to your seats and mind your own business? Of course the villain would stick up for the quirkless fraud. Anzai seethed. Shinsu narrowed his eyes at the boy. Go sit down before I make you. Shinsu's voice was level, but the threat was clear in his words. All but Anzai went back to their seats. You going to brainwash me, Shinsu? I'm sure one of the teachers would love to hear about you abusing your quirk. I'm sure the teachers would also love to hear how you convinced Yokoyama-san to do the same thing to Midoriya-san as well. Shinsu replied coolly. Anzai-san froze and was about to say something back when Yamada-sensei entered, yelling a greeting that made everyone but Shinsu, Anzai, and Izuku cover their ears. There was a beat of silence before Yamada-sensei was able to take in the scene. Izuku, cowering by a window, tears swimming in his eyes. Anzai, glaring down at Shinsu with the purple-haired boy calmly staring back. Come now, little listeners. What seems to be the issue? Yamada-sensei asked calmly. Anzai was the first to move, stomping his way over to his desk before sitting down. Izuku stiffly sat back down in his chair. He could feel his classmates' stares on him like hot pokers, and he pulled in slightly, trying to disappear. Midoriya-kun? Yamada-sensei questions. What happened? Are you all right? Izuku had a feeling that the truth quirk still hadn't worn off, so he didn't answer, choosing to just look at the voice hero instead. Anzai-san was just asking Midoriya-san some uncomfortable questions. I told him to back off and things got tense. Shinsu supplied. Yamada glanced at Anzai before glancing back at Izuku, trying to piece together the truth. At that, Anzai stood up again. We were just discussing Midoriya's interesting schedule. He bit out. I hadn't realized that it was possible to be in the hero course only part-time. Yamada narrowed his eyes at Anzai. Yua is a free-form school. We do not follow the usual traditions of other high schools here, he said firmly. That is obvious. After all, what other high school would let a quirkless nobody into such a dangerous department, while denying those of us with useful abilities from entering? Anzai sneered. I had thought this was supposed to be the top school, but obviously you let pity lead your decisions. Yamada-sensei straightened his back at that statement, seeming significantly taller than he did moments before. Midoriya-kun has proved to Principal Nezu and the staff at UA that he is more than capable of being in the hero course. The only reason he is not full-time is due to ignorant people in the government preventing it. I suggest you reflect on your own beliefs and actions before commenting on anyone else again. Anzai glared at the teacher before sitting back down in his chair. Yamada-sensei looked like he wanted to say more but stopped himself when he saw the pleading expression on Izuku's face. Underscore 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 underscore. Aizawa met with Izuku once morning classes concluded. Yamada had texted him that something had happened in class, and the underground hero had had a nasty feeling in his gut since. Izuku was still sitting at his desk when Aizawa entered the room. The rest of the students had filed out already to head towards the lunchroom. Why aren't you going to lunch, problem child? Aizawa asked, trying to gauge the boy's reaction. Izuku shifted slightly in his chair and shook his head before looking up at Aizawa with a defiant smirk. The bell just rang, Eraser-sensei. Forgive me for taking time to leave my daydream. Deku put his notebook into his backpack and swung the yellow bag over his shoulder as he stood. Aizawa had no real response to that, and studied the boy as he left the room, stomach once again clenching with worry. Something was wrong, but the boy wouldn't talk. He thought the kid was past that with him. Underscore 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 underscore. Izuku slowly made his way to the lunchroom, unsure if he actually wanted to face the crowds at the moment. The morning's events had shaken the small boy. It was too soon for the class to know. If this class knew, then it was only a matter of time before his other classes also found out. Yet, Izuku knew he had to eat. He knew he had to face the lunchroom and the kids of his homeroom class. Izuku knew that he had to get used to the fact that everyone would know from now on. No one seemed to notice the green-eyed boy when he entered the room, allowing Izuku to quickly grab his lunch from Lunch Rush. The next task, unfortunately, was now finding a place to sit. The tables were all mostly crowded with students, and Izuku passed by them quickly, scanning the room for an empty place. Midoriya, Anzai called. Izuku glanced over at him, unsure as to why he was being called. The boy motioned him over. "Hey." Anzai-san greeted when Izuku stepped forward. "I wanted to apologize to you. I shouldn't have gotten so upset in class earlier." It's okay," Izuku stammered, surprised by the apology. "I'm sorry I used my quirk on you. If you accept, you are welcome to sit with us," Yokoyama-san said softly. Izuku looked around the crowded room and sighed. "Yes, thank you," he said as he sat. The others smiled at him and began talking amongst themselves, allowing Izuku to eat. Midway through the meal, Anzai-san turned to him. "So you really are quirkless?" the boy asked. Izuku nodded slowly. "And you really are taking classes from the hero course?" Another nod. "And the support course?" Another nod. Holly said, "Dude, when do you have time to sleep?" Izuku smiled shyly at the boy. "I'm on a pretty strict regime. There is a tea time for everything so that ICC can get enough sleep and SS study tea time." "You said you got 12 points by taking down robots in the entrance exam? How on earth did you do that? I couldn't even manage to down one." A boy, Godo-san, asked. I mostly used them against one another. That takes down 2 at the same time. But I also SS studied the wiring of our robots and Kaya knew how to deactivate them once in the control PPP panel." "Damn, that's pretty impressive," Anzai said. Though his words were kind and his tone seemed odd, something in Izuku's stomach jerked uncomfortably. I was just lucky a lot of the TT time," Izuku replied warily. "You have hero lessons today, right?" asked the girl with frizzy red hair, Ono-san. "Yes. After lunch. Mind if we walk you there?" Godo-san spoke. Why?" Izuku asked. "To make sure those other kids know their place. Of course can't he have one of our own getting owned by those hero course asshats," Anzai laughed. The others followed his lead and laughed as well. I think I'll be okay on my own. Besides, you all will be in class. Hero students have lunch after us SSSO. There are 30 minutes between." "What, you get an extra 30 minutes for lunch?" Sano-san shrieked, her voice echoing throughout the lunchroom. And not really. I have TTTO do other things to stay on SS schedule." "Aw man, look. Can we at least walk you to wherever you are going? I really want to make up for my actions," Anzai-san said with a nervous smile. Don't worry about it. It's fine. I can see how frustrating." "Great," Anzai-san cheered, ignoring Izuku's words. Underscore 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 underscore. When lunch was over, Izuku was followed by the group of 6 toward Inuisan's office. He really didn't want them to know where he was headed. So he decided to drop off his bag in the hero classroom first. Fine. Really? Izuku whispered as the 6 continued following him. But the chattering students ignored his words. Just as Izuku reached the doors, they flew open to reveal the angry blonde boy that had run into Izuku during the entrance exams. Damn it. He had hoped the other students would already be heading towards lunch. What do you people want? The boy yelled at them. Bakugo-san, please respect your fellow students. Ida called from behind. I don't need to respect any of these extras, now get out of my way. You should be more kind to your new classmate. Aizawa spoke from behind Izuku. The blonde boy glared at the group and sneered. New student? A black-haired girl with a ponytail asked from behind Bakugo. You mean the part-timer? Are they in your group? Izuku ducked his head as Aizawa introduced him, pushing the entire group into the room. Aizawa whistled as he entered. Damn, Midoriya, you really get to have top treatment by being in this hero course. This classroom is way bigger than ours, and they have less students, well, unless you are here. The other students of 1A watched the 1C students warily, unsure of how to respond to the clear hostility coming from their peers. Izuku's stomach curled in a knot. Okay, thank you for walking me. I'm good now. You guys need to get BB back to class. Don't want to get in trouble. Aizawa smiled at him, but the cruel look in his eyes made Izuku shudder. What's the matter, Midoriya? Don't want to share the riches of your specialty class with us? Are we embarrassing you? Aizawa laughed and Izuku shrunk back a bit. Of course he wasn't fine with me. Izuku thought bitterly. He just wanted to make a scene. So, hero course kids, Aizawa called. You had better watch out for Midoriya. He got 77 points in the entrance exams. Aizawa-san, please stop. You have class. Izuku tried, but Aizawa pushed him to the side strong. Another student had left a foot out, tripping the boy and making him fall onto the ground. This pathetic kid from class 1C might just kick your ass. I hope he does. It will be so wonderful to see this nobody take you down. But if not, it will only prove my point that UA is going downhill. A few of the hero course students stood at these words, anger flashing across their faces. Don't call him pathetic, Midoriya-kun earned his place here. Uraraka spoke up. Izuku jolted, having not recognized her in the room. He helped me in the entrance exams. I know he is strong enough to be on an even playing field with us. Aizawa and the other class 1C students laughed. You know why he has a split schedule? Asked Goto-san, egged on by Aizawa-san's bravery at facing 1A. Sano-san giggled into her hands, looking back at Izuku. Maybe we shouldn't say. It will be so much funnier if he does beat them, and then they find out. What are you talking about? The black-haired ponytail girl asked, looking uncertain. The rest of class 1A also looked extremely uncomfortable. It made sense. Aizawa was both picking on class 1A and his fellow 1C student. The others didn't understand his anger towards the hero course. And now, Izuku. Don't be stupid, Sano-san. Midoriya would never win in a fight against these brutes. We have to tell them it's only right to try and protect one of our own. Aizawa sneered. Don't want them to go all out and hurt the kid. That is enough out of you. Ida spoke. Your actions have been openly hostile to both this class and your own classmate for no reason. I must ask that you leave and allow us to pass you in order to attend lunch. Ida's arm chopped the air as he spoke, gaining more giggles from Sano-san. We'll leave. We just wanted to warn you about our dear Midoriya and his purpose in this class. Midoriya doesn't belong with you people, or even belong at UA, and if you idiots are beaten by him, you obviously don't deserve to be in the hero course either. I thought I would come and give you fair warning, for everyone's sakes. The hell, the blonde boy, Bakugo shouted. Stop talking in FC King circles and spit it out so I can eat lunch. Aizawa smiled, glancing at Izuku. Very well. Our peer, Midoriya, is so very special it seems. UA has given him permission to be in 3 courses at once, though they would have preferred him only being in the hero course with a support course on the side. Somehow, he's proven his worth, though I think UA has honestly just fallen for some pitiful sob story. Izuku's head was spinning. This was so wrong. Aizawa continued, however. I came to let you all know that with Midoriya's Special circumstances. Everyone is screwed. If you were to fight him, going at full strength, you'd probably kill him and be kicked out of the course. But if you go easy on the fraud, and he beats you, you'll be the laughing stock of UA and still be kicked out of the hero course. Anzai looked at Izuku, who was still on the floor after being pushed. Would you like to tell them why, Midoriya? Izuku's eyes were wide, and he shook his head slightly. That not. It isn't. Please don't. Izuku stuttered out, only making Anzai laugh. Fine. I'll tell them. The reason those things will happen is because our sweet Midoriya is nothing but a quirkless kid who somehow lucked into this program. Don't be ridiculous, Uraraka said shrilly. That's not funny to lie about. We aren't lying. Yokoyama-san smiled. Like I said, I'm doing everyone a favor. UA has fallen to the level of letting a quirkless kid into the hero department, preventing those who actually deserve the position from entering. Not only that, but they are simultaneously dragging this entire class down with him. Midoriya thought he could get away by simply not letting on, but I knew it would be better to let you all know. So good luck choosing which course you will take. Are you going to take your education seriously and put the fraud in his place, opening up a well-deserved spot for those of us who can actually help as heroes? Or are you going to go easy and let some quirkless loser beat you and drag your name through the mud? The group of 6 sniggered when Izuku flinched as Anzai walked towards him. I think it's absurd that I don't have a spot among you, but I'm glad I'm not in your shoes. Good luck dealing with this a-hole who is forcing you into a lose-a-lose situation. Anzai laughed as he walked out, leaving Izuku to face the 19 Class 1A students. Izuku stood from the floor and looked at each student in 1A. There was a solid minute of silence as they all looked uncertainly at each other. Then, just as the class exploded into noise, the door opened and Aizawa-sensei walked in. The class immediately silenced once more and looked at the man. Why aren't you all at lunch? Aizawa-sensei asked. You need to eat in order to have the energy to train. We all just had this encounter with 1C. It didn't go well and the ponytail girl started, only to be interrupted by Aizawa-sensei. I'm not actually curious, the man said, putting a hand in the air. Get to lunch before I make you train on empty stomachs. At that, the 19 students fled the room, leaving Izuku and Aizawa-sensei alone. Underscore 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 underscore. The problem child had not shown up to therapy, so Aizawa was tasked with tracking him down. One of the students from 1C had led him in the direction of a classroom, nervously looking away from the teacher, putting Aizawa on edge. As Aizawa neared the classroom, a group of 6 students from 1C passed by, laughing heartily. Aizawa caught the brat's name on their lips and almost stopped the group before thinking better of it. If something had happened, the first priority was getting the brat away from this year's rambunctious class. When Aizawa entered, the air was tense. Most of Class 1A standing on the opposing side of the classroom from a shaking freckled-faced boy. Ushering the other students out quickly, Aizawa turned to check on his problem child when Izuku fell to the floor, pulling at his hair and attempting to take deep breaths. Aizawa squatted in front of him to be on his level. What happened? The man asked, keeping his voice level. Izuku shook his head back and forth, not answering. Aizawa sighed and sat down completely. He had 20 minutes to figure this out. Brat, I need you to talk to me. What happened? You didn't show up to therapy. Izuku only shook his head again. Aizawa could see the small tremors running through his body as his hands gripped tightly in his hair. The boy's eyes were squeezed tight as his breath hitched in his chest. It was clear that the boy was struggling to not cry. Do I need to get a Nuisen? Another shake of his head, and his hands tightened further as Izuku began to pull at his hair. Aizawa sighed, moving his hands to carefully clasp over the boy's. Izuku flinched at the contact. Stop pulling your hair. We have already talked about you hurting yourself. Izuku's hands loosened slightly, but didn't let go. Izuku, Aizawa said softly. This time, the boy looked up. I didn't want them to know. It's too soon. I didn't even have a chance. I haven't even met them, and now they are going to hate me. They know I'm quirkless. They know I'm useless. Nezu was wrong. You were wrong. I can't be a hero if I don't have a quirk. I haven't had a chance since I was born. My only option is to fight illegally. I'll never be accepted. It's happening again. It'll start all over. I'll have problems and you'll get fed up, and then you will transfer me to a new school, and it will start all over again. Then you'll give me away, and I'll be all alone again. I'm not good enough to be here. I don't deserve this spot. You guys were just pitying me. From silence to a rushed mumbling, Aizawa almost couldn't keep up. Kid, Aizawa said, stopping the boy's ramblings. I don't play around with sit like this. If you are in the hero course, it is because you proved yourself. Izuku shook his head. I won't be able to keep up. I'll never be on the same level as the kids with quirks. I'll just disappoint you. Aizawa sighed and looked at the boy with his no-nonsense expression. Enough. This conversation isn't going to go anywhere. You are in the hero course, so deal with it. I'm only in here part-time. Not even the government believes I can do it. The politicians are idiots. They haven't seen you fight like I have. Everyone knows. So what? They were going to find out anyway. I'll just be a target again. Then I give you permission to put them in their place. Use that move you used on All Might the first time you met. That should work pretty well. Izuku smiled slightly at him, removing his hands from his hair. Everyone in 1C hates me. I'm not sure if it's because I'm quirkless, or if it's because I'm in the hero course. It will just take time for everyone to adapt. We don't put up with bullying here. If the negative treatment continues long-term, we will put a stop to it. Izuku's eyes widened. That would just make things worse. Aizawa snorted. Why do children always say that? Because it's true. You punish the kid, and they'll just come back worse than before. If you expel them, then their friends will just take the place. I've done this before. I know how it works. Aizawa sighed. Yua is. Don't say it's different. Kids are the same everywhere. The social hierarchy never changes. The strongest kids always get away with sit, and if they don't, then those at the bottom get reminded of their place from those in the middle. I'm on the bottom, Aizawa-sensei. I always have been. It doesn't matter how strong I am or what I've experienced. I'm quirkless. That's all anyone needs to know. Aizawa didn't know how to respond to that, so he didn't say anything at all. Izuku was calming down significantly, and eventually, the boy went to stand up. Are you okay to attend class for the afternoon? Aizawa asked, feeling unease at allowing Izuku to participate. Izuku nodded. I can't fall behind, he murmured. I won't be in charge today. It will be All Might. Aizawa said. It's okay if you need the day to settle your nerves. I thought I wasn't supposed to get special treatment. The boy said with a small grin. Aizawa stared at the boy. I don't want to go to class. I'm nervous how they will treat me. I don't want to be pitied. I don't want to be seen as weak. In order to do that, I have to go to class, whether I want to or not. Aizawa nodded at his reasoning, glancing at the clock. They will be back in just a few minutes. I'm supposed to be going to my next class. I can stay. No. Go teach the students you are supposed to teach. I'll survive. If you need something, go to All Might. I know you don't like him, but he is aware of your situation. If anything, he can call me or someone available who you like. Izuku smiled softly at the man again. Okay? Inui-san will want to see you after school. Izuku scowled, now but nodded his head in acceptance anyway. Okay. Then the boy went and sat in the seat that Aizawa had shown him a few days ago. His seat. In Class 1A, where he belonged. It didn't matter if the child believed it or not. He belonged. Underscore 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 Aizawa was to give the rare training for Class 1C today, whilst All Might took the reins of the hero course. Hand-to-hand combat was his forte, after all, and many of these kids would need it if they hoped to eventually move up to the hero course at some point. Aizawa knew that at least a few of these kids deserved to be in the hero course. Their quirks were simply not suited to the entrance exam. Thus, it was his and the teachers' jobs to ensure that they were given a fighting chance during the sports festival. Upon introducing himself, the students immediately snapped to attention. He had this effect on children. The kids could always tell that he meant business and responded in kind. He instructed the children to do tasks that would allow him to see how far they were in physical defense. Unfortunately, almost everyone lacked any ability. Aizawa mentally reminded himself to adjust the syllabus since they would be starting at the very beginning, instead of just touching up on the basics as he had hoped. During the 10-minute break in which the students got water, Aizawa finally overheard a snippet of conversation that filled him in on the missing pieces of what happened with the problem child that morning. So stupid that we are stuck doing basic drills while the quickless kid gets to play hero. One of the boys, the ringleader of the class, commented offhandedly. Yeah, I bet the teachers had to ask the other students to go easy on him. Another boy said, I don't know, 77 points is a lot. And he did say that he managed 12 by fighting the robots. Whispered a girl. Those were probably lucky accidents. He's quirkless Yokoyama-san. No way he can do anything worthwhile when it comes to fighting. It's almost sad that Yua is allowing him to have such an unachievable dream. The ringleader stated. What if he gets hurt? One of the other boys asked. Maybe he'll realize he doesn't belong. Piped up a girl. Aizawa was just about to step in when another child walked up to the group. Maybe he'll come back tomorrow morning and be just fine. I honestly can't wait to hear about how awesome the hero course training was today, said the purple-haired boy. A few of the students stiffened and eyed him warily. Oh, going to threaten us again, villain. The boy who most encouraged the ringleader sneered. The purple-haired boy barely spared them a glance before shrugging his shoulders. Funny that I'm the one called a villain when it is you guys who are already towing the line of bullying. But to each their own, I suppose. Then he walked away from the group to refill his water bottle. Aizawa sighed at the interaction before ending the break and starting to teach the class again. It was frustrating that this got out so soon, but the kid was tough. He could handle a few a-holes. Yet, the uncomfortable curling feeling never left Aizawa's gut. 10 minutes before class was out, Nezu messaged Aizawa. Midoriya-san is asking for you. I am sending a replacement. Aizawa sighed. They had almost made it all the way through the class. God damn it. Izuku was fidgeting with his wristbands when the other students entered the room after lunch. None of them immediately approached him, but gradually, a few walked over. Your name is Midoriya, right? The ponytailed hair girl asked as she approached. Izuku eyed her warily and nodded his head. I'm Yaoyorozu Momo, but you can call me Yaomomo if you want. The girl smiled kindly at him, making Izuku more wary than he had been previously. Was she trying to trick him? Was she just going to turn like Anzai-san had earlier? The girl's smile held, but her eyes saddened looking at him. I think it was awful what that boy from Class 1C did. It wasn't his right to share your personal information. But it happened, and we can't change it. I just want you to know. I don't think you are any less than the rest of us. You earned your way here through the entrance exam, so you must be qualified. Izuku nodded once at the girl before his eyes flickered to the people approaching behind her. It was Iida-san and Yoraka-san. The latter of the two grinned nervously at him, and then lowered her eyes, almost looking ashamed. I'm sorry about my comment earlier. I realize it must have sounded really cruel. I thought that boy was just being mean and teasing you. I don't want you to think that I think that being quirkless makes you any less. Honestly, the fact that you got into the hero department proves that you are really awesome. She shuffled her feet as her face lit up. Also, I wanted to thank you for helping me during the entrance exam. I know that I wasn't in any real danger, but it felt like it. You really calmed my nerves and kept me from panicking. Yoraka grinned at him. I must also thank you, Iida said. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have received as many points as I did if I hadn't helped Yoraka-san. You encouraged me to help, and maybe one of the reasons I was able to enter the hero course at all. Ida said passionately, chopping his arm through the air once more. Izuku blushed at the compliments, unsure how to take this kindness. Did they not care that he was quirkless? Didn't they think he cheated his way in or something? Another girl came up to them then. Her skin and hair were pink, and she had horns atop her head. "I'm Mina," she said happily, bounding up to her desk. "It's really cool to meet you. We were all so curious about you when Aizawa-sensei told us you would be joining us most afternoons. You've got to be pretty amazing to have gotten first place in the exam. I can't wait to see you in action." And on it went. Most of the class introduced themselves, complimenting Izuku or asking him light-hearted questions. Unfortunately, his selective mutism had decided to take hold, but none of the class seemed to mind, opting to ask yes or no questions once they figured it out. One kid, Kota Koji, didn't seem to speak either, and the two signed to one another instead. Mina found it adorable, and a few of the class members asked Kota and Izuku to teach them at some point if they had time. Not all of the students were necessarily pleasant, but Izuku had expected the more negative reactions than the more positive ones. A boy named Kaminari had teased Izuku only to be hit on the back of the head by a girl with headphone jacks for earlobes. Jiru. The green-eyed boy hadn't known how to handle his jokes, unsure if he was being stupid, trying to be an a-hole, or if he was genuinely joking, and, thus, had simply ignored him. Only later would he realize that the boy was joking and hadn't meant any harm. Another boy with purple S for hair, Minta, had also been unkind, though Izuku had a feeling the boy was just trying to act cool. "So, that guy was serious. You really don't have a quirk." Izuku had nodded slowly at the shorter boy. Minta's face scrunched. "I didn't even know that happened anymore. I thought only old people didn't have quirks. You're like an abnormality." Izuku smiled weakly when a few of the others scolded the boy, Kaminari dragging him away by the ear, claiming that he was like that with everyone. A few students hadn't introduced themselves at all. One boy, who Yamamoto-san introduced as Todoroki, had sat quietly looking out the window. The boy's hair was half white and half red, an oddity even among the world of quirks. But what drew Izuku's attention the most was the burn over the boy's left eye. Izuku's back had burned briefly when he looked at it, causing him to turn away quickly from the boy. Todoroki didn't seem to mind much, however. The other person to ignore him was Bakugo. The explosive blonde sat at his desk, pouting angrily and sending glares towards Izuku as the class crowded around the boy. Izuku had a feeling that Bakugo may be more like Anzasen in reference to his quirklessness, and it made a shiver run down his back. He wouldn't have to worry about that if his quirklessness was still a secret. Underscore 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 underscore. Not much later, All Might had bounded into the room and asked all the students to change into their hero clothes and then meet him at Ground B. As everyone dressed in bright and flashy costumes, Izuku donned his UA gym outfit along with his utility belt. "Is that your costume, Midoriya-san? Did you not get a suitcase? I will be sure to complain to the teachers for their lack of care in preparing for you," Ida said once he spotted Izuku. And no need. I never submitted a CC costume design." This, of course, wasn't exactly true. He had submitted his Deku costume, but it was vetoed by both Aizawa and Nezu once they saw it. Apparently, he couldn't walk around in his vigilante outfit without the chances of being recognized, thus he was now costumeless for the time being. "That is a serious oversight, Midoriya-san. I understand that you are only part-time, but you should take more pride in the hero course." Ida seemed like he would keep talking, but was interrupted by Kaminari. "Leave him be, Ida," the blonde said, a smile playing on his lips. The task was simple. The class was split into groups of 4, with 2 people from each group forming teams, heroes and villains. The heroes would need to obtain a bomb from the villains in a set timeline, and the villains would need to keep it safe. Lots were drawn randomly, and Izuku ended up on a hero team, with Uraraka against Ada and Bakugo. They were to go first, as well. What were the odds? As the training task approached, the Deku mask slipped slowly into place. allowing Izuku's voice to come back. He spoke with Uraraka quietly in order to form a plan. From what I understand, Ida can run super fast. Bakugo can create E-explosions from his palms, and you have an anti-gravity quirk that initiates when you make C contact with your hands, he clarified. The girl nodded. I can't exactly DDDO anything flashy and am relatively useless in these situations, but I'll try my best. I'm as sorry if I drag you down. And no problem, Uraraka said, waving her hands frantically. We are all here to learn, so it's not a big deal. I'm sure you'll be more helpful than you think. The girl smiled widely at him, lifting Izuku's confidence. Maybe smiling really was a powerful tool. Tell me what you can do instead of what you can't. Okay? Izuku nodded. I am good at analysis. I've also TT trained in hand-to-hand, and can hold my own PP pretty well. My biggest strength will be in helping us make a plan, though. Izuku's stutter eased slightly as he spoke, eventually disappearing as the Deku mask slipped into place when there was only 1 minute left until the start. Uraraka nodded and listened intently on what he had to say. She made suggestions here and there, making up for the little information Izuku had on his 3 classmates. Based on what he and Uraraka had experienced thus far, Ida was likely to take the role of villain extremely seriously. He would stick to the book outlining the cliché acts that villains were known for. This meant sticking close to the weapon, hiding it in the interior of the building, and most likely taking the time to monologue as well. Bakugo, on the other hand, was more independent. He liked being in control and preferred to fight, and then ask questions later. Izuku deduced that he would most likely break off from Ida, searching for the hero team on his own to take them down before they even had a chance to reach the weapon. Deku proposed that he and Uraraka split up at first, him taking the lower floors and heading up while she did the opposite. Since Bakugo would most likely head down, towards the most obvious entrance, it would fall on Izuku to stay hidden, a feat that the boy excelled in thanks to his past. Once one of them found the objective, or if they were forced into an encounter with one of the villains, they would back away and call for backup. One-on-one battles would not aid them against the current foes. Once backup was called, a plan was created to take down each villain student. At the whistle, Uraraka floated up to the ceiling, and Izuku entered the building through the basement hatch he had discovered when studying the blueprints. Thank goodness for his knowledge of reading the complicated papers, or else he wouldn't have found the extra entrance. Deku made his way up the building, sticking to the shadows and slipping from room to room as quietly as he could. By the 3rd floor, he had heard nothing from Uraraka-san, nor any other sounds. Either all was well, or the building was soundproof. Deku went with the former for now, as nothing in the building clued him into the idea that it was soundproof. Just as he turned the corner to head up the next flight of stairs, he saw the flash of blonde. Deku backpedaled immediately, but it was too late. Bakugo had spotted him. The blonde villain gave chase, losing Deku quickly, but angrily blowing up the interior of the building as he searched for him. Each bang shook the boy to his core, but luckily Deku had taken charge and was preventing the worst of the flashbacks from surfacing. If only he felt his life were truly in danger, then he wouldn't be having flashbacks at all. It was amazing how the body's survival senses worked. Either way, Deku needed to keep his sit together. He could break down later from the sound of the explosions. He would be fine so long as the heat didn't make contact with his body. As Bakugo destroyed more objects, more dust filled the air. The boy was also yelling, giving Deku the break he needed. With sight obscured and the yelling and explosions blocking the sound of his movements, Deku could make a getaway. Bakugo expected him to use the stairs. No sane person would climb out of a 3rd-story window and scale the building up to the 4th. Luckily, Deku wasn't entirely sane. The green-eyed boy broke a window at the same time that another explosion rang out and climbed his way to the next floor. Before he entered, Uraraka came over the intercom. It's on level 5. The floor is divided into 2 large rooms. Edison has the bomb in the room to the west side of the building. I'm currently in the other room. Izuku made his way up another floor and slipped through a window that entered the east side room. He found Uraraka quickly, nearing making her scream when he snuck up on her. Sorry. I thought you would have sensed me when on alert. The girl looked at him confused, but Deku kept talking. Bakugo is down 2 flights. The explosions are just him destroying the room as he tries to find me. It was a storage area, so it was pretty full. He'll find the broken window eventually. However, we better make a move on Ida before Bakugo has a chance to catch up with us. What's his location? He is dead center, like you thought he would be. He's pacing the room, but is on high alert. He almost caught me. Izuku nodded. All right. Use the window that I used to get in here to make your way around to the other side of the glass. Draw his attention by breaking the window into his room with a rock. Then show yourself and rush him. I'll be waiting on the opposite side of the room to tag the bomb when Ida moves it away from you. Uraraka nodded and moved out. Izuku waited to hear the glass shatter before moving to position. He hid behind a column close to the other side of the room, so Ida wouldn't notice him immediately. Bakugo Uraraka has found us, Ida cried into his headpiece. The explosions from below ceased and Izuku could picture the blonde boy running up the steps towards them. At that moment, Uraraka stormed the building, aiming straight for the target, but Ida moved it away quickly. Uraraka kept his attention on her, as Izuku stepped out and tagged the bomb. Just as the winning whistle sounded, Bakugo slammed the door of the room open, looking pissed. Heroes win, All Might's voice boomed across the training field. Uraraka cheered. Underscore 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 back in the observatory. All Might praised and scolded each of the 4 students on places in which they were right and wrong. The villains got the worst of the harsher words, but both Izuku and Uraraka also received criticism. Uraraka-san, you nearly blew your cover when you laughed at Eida Shonen from behind the wall. Had this been a real-world situation, and you had been caught, the entire operation could have gone downhill. However, you did well in distracting Eida Shonen from Midoriya Shonen when trying to tag the target. Yes, sensei, she said, absorbing the information. Midoriya Shonen. All Might started, drawing Deku's steady gaze. You did well staying hidden and using Bakugo's personality to your benefit. However, you left behind clear evidence that you had left through the window. You should look into ways to work around those types of problems. You also nearly blew your cover by sneaking up on a teammate. Even some pros might have been startled at your sudden appearance. In the end, however, you did a fine job at fulfilling your role in the mission. Deku nodded at All Might in reply. Eida Shonen. You played the part of villain well, but might have taken things too seriously. Villains are humans just like us, not puppets that fill in storylines. Next time you are put in this position, use your mind and think creatively. The best villains are those who understand heroes and vice versa. Also, you need to keep more aware of your surroundings when running at speed. You heard Bakugo stop firing when you cued him in on Uraraka. That should have let you know that he had not apprehended Midoriya-san. The best case would have been for you to be more alert and assume that both heroes were in the room with you. Yes, All Might sensei. I will do better next time. Finally, All Might turned to Bakugo, who was clenching his fists in anger. Bakugo Shonen. I know, Bakugo shouted, interrupting the larger man. I know what I did wrong, he grit out. All Might paused for a moment. Then, would you mind telling your classmates? I should have been more level-headed. I went out expecting a fight not to be evaded. He looked over at Deku then. You're supposed to be a hero, right? Why the hell didn't you come out to fight? Deku froze for a moment, studying the other boy. He was frustrated, but seemed to honestly be curious. Because I wouldn't have won against you. I'm not stupid enough to run into a quirk battle without a quirk or beneficial support tools. The best course of action to achieve the objective was to stay low. Hero work is not always flashy. You must think about the lives you are trying to protect first and foremost before letting your ego cloud your judgment. The explosive boy grit his teeth, and his fists tightened further. I might have gone too far. He might think I'm a know-it-all now. I was just repeating Aizawa-sensei's words, though. Izuku thought to himself. I need to learn to be gentler when Deku is in control. This is similar to what Aizawa scolded me about during the entrance exam. All Might said. You are both correct, though I might have put it a little differently. Bakugo Shonen. By allowing your anger and assumptions to cloud your judgment, you gave Midoriya Shonen a perfect opportunity to escape. You need to be more aware of how your actions influence the decisions of others in the future. Bakugo test and looked away. Underscore 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 Izuku took notes on all the other students during the rest of the class. He was amazed by the versatile uses that each used for their quirk. Whilst the kids in 1C blamed the flashiness of quirks as being the reason to enter the hero course, Izuku had a feeling that it may actually be the creative use of them. Flashy quirks were easier to experiment with, so it made sense. But if students of Class 1C focused on versatility, they may have stood a chance at gaining a spot. During the final battle of the class, Bakugo walked over to Midoriya, who had been sitting in the corner taking notes. "How did you know what I would do?" he asked under his breath, fists clenched at his sides. Izuku looked up at the boy, moving the Deku mask into place. This kid registered as unstable, a potential threat, so the Deku side of him didn't mind stepping up. "Uraraka-san told me about some of your actions yesterday. I added my own experiences with you and made an educated guess. It paid off. You piss me off." The boy's sudden confession felt like a slap to Izuku. The green-eyed boy stuttered incoherently before taking a calming breath and replying. "Why? What did I do?" This seemed to make the blonde angrier for some reason, his body seeming to grow as he swelled in rage. "Meet me after school. I'll tell you then." "I can't," Deku replied. "I have plans after school. Just tell me now if it is important." The blonde glared at him. "You think you are so much better than me, don't you?" the boy asked. Deku quirked an eyebrow at him. No. Where would you get that ID? You think that just because you're quirkless and tied with me for first place that you have more skill? Well, FCKU. The boy was keeping his voice low so that All Might wouldn't hear. "I think you are mistaken. I don't think I'm better than you. I didn't even think I would pass the entrance exams. It was only because of luck. Don't give me that bullshit." A small crackle lit the boy's hands and Deku backed away from the heat. "You are just a worthless nobody. The bottom of the barrel. You can barely even defend yourself. I saw how you acted with that kid from your other class. Don't go acting all high and mighty because you won this exercise by using some cheap trick." Another crackle went off in the boy's hand. Izuku glanced towards the class who were excitedly viewing the fight currently taking place on screen. All he had to do was call one over. "I'm sorry you're upset." Deku tried, but the boy only snarled at him. "You have two choices, nerd. Stay out of my way from now on, or be destroyed by my hands." Another pop went off close to Deku's face. The mask dropped quickly and Izuku backed quickly into the wall he had been sitting by. This seemed to appease Bakugo, who smirked and turned away from him. Izuku worked strong to calm his breathing as the final group was given pointers by All Might. 10 minutes from the bell, All Might released the class to change. Underscore 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 underscore. Once everyone left the room, All Might breathed a sigh and deflated. Izuku was still sitting by the wall, watching. The man turned and jumped slightly at seeing the boy before grinning nervously. "Midoriya Shonen, is something wrong?" Izuku shook his head, paused a moment, and then nodded. All Might's light-hearted features turned more serious. "What's the matter, kid? Did something happen? Are you injured?" "And no, I don't." Tears clouded Izuku's vision as he tried to speak. His throat closed up, and he buried his head in his hands. "What is wrong? Why am I panicking?" "Nothing has happened. I need Aizawa-sensei," Izuku sighed. "Aizawa is in class. Can I help you with anything? Why are you upset?" The worried man walked closer to the crouching boy who only huddled further into the wall, trying to control the confusing tremors ringing in his body. I need Aizawa-sensei. Izuku signed again. Please, I need him. I need him. Over and over the boy asked for the underground hero, no longer taking in his surroundings or the questions All Might was asking. Nezu wants to know what is wrong. Then he'll get Aizawa. All Might finally said. Izuku lifted his face from his arms, begging for help with his eyes. I don't know. I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know. IJJ just need him. I'm sorry. Izuku's voice broke as more tears streamed down his face. He continued signing apologies and asking for Aizawa after that, hoping that All Might would do as he asked. Izuku was lost by his odd reaction. He shouldn't be crying. Nothing had happened. He wasn't hurt. No one had left him. He hadn't done anything wrong. But here he was, breaking apart. Sure, Bakugo had made him nervous, but he had dealt with that kind of thing before. Other than that incident, the rest of class had been great even. So why was he sobbing? Why was he starting to struggle to breathe? Why couldn't he calm down? He shouldn't be breaking down. Anger and fear swirled throughout his body, neither making much sense to the boy, but both feeding off of one another. Izuku was overwhelmed by the intensity of the emotions. The boy tried to shut his eyes, but it only made things worse. The darkness only seemed to close in around him, strangling, suffocating. When Aizawa walked into the observation room of Ground B, he couldn't help but groan at the sight he was met with. He should have stayed with the brat. Izuku was curled up in the corner of the room, arms wrapped around his knees. His head was tucked low, and his body rocked slightly as sobs racked his slight form. Toshinori was sitting nearby, along the wall to prevent the boy from feeling trapped. The skeletal man looked up when Aizawa entered. As soon as I sent the students to change, he just broke down. He did well in the exercise, no injuries. Aizawa grunted and strode over to Izuku, kneeling before him as he so often did when trying to calm the boy. Hey brat, he called softly. The boy jerked, looking up at his face. You came? You came? I wasn't sure, the boy sighed. Of course I came. I told you I would, didn't I? The boy nodded, wiping a few of his tears. What's going on? Aizawa asked, keeping his tone neutral. If he showed worry, the boy was less likely to tell him anything. I don't know. I just started crying. The boy sighed. Roman 3SS started and CC couldn't st stop. And I don't know why. It doesn't make sense. ICC can't stop. He whimpered. Okay. Then don't try to stop. If you need to cry, then just do it. It's not like you have anywhere to be. Aizawa said. Izuku looked confused for a moment before accepting the words and nodding his head. The small shoulders relaxed as the green-eyed child stopped fighting himself. Aizawa sat patiently, waiting for him to calm down. When the tears had dried and the hitching breaths mostly eased, Aizawa spoke again. What were you doing before class let out? The boy shook his head at the man, not speaking. Aizawa test. So, something happened. Was it another student? Deku glared at Aizawa momentarily before the green eyes softened, and he looked away. Aizawa hated playing this game. He had become pretty good at reading the boy's reactions and understanding the meaning behind them, but it would be much easier if the brat just told him what happened. At least, the kid wasn't fond of lying. Rarely did he ever give false information, unless it was to say he was fine. Aizawa was pretty sure the kid didn't realize that being angry, upset, or panicked wasn't fine, though. Bakugo Shonen was near you at the end of class, Toshinori said. Aizawa had almost forgotten that he was still in the room. Aizawa huffed slightly, looking the kid in the eyes. Did Bakugo do or say something to you that was upsetting? Izuku's eyes went wide, and for a split moment, his head began to shake no. But then he stopped and looked down at his wrists, where he played with the fabric cuffs. I don't think. He wouldn't know. There's no reason it should have. Finish a sentence, problem child. Deku was once again pulled back into place, as the boy lifted his head again to glare at Aizawa. It's nothing. He was just being an ass, I'm used to it. I shouldn't have reacted this way. He was being an ass? How? Aizawa asked, ignoring the boy's anger towards his own reaction for now. It was nothing. Midoriya shounen. If something happened while I was in the same room, I need to know, Toshinori stated. The boy whipped his head over towards the man. FCK off, Skeletor. I don't have to tell you anything. Aizawa would have laughed at the look on Toshinori's face if he wasn't now having to deal with a pissed-off brat. He opted not to scold Deku this time, as he was still trying to get information out of the kid. If it was nothing, then there is no reason you can't tell me about your conversation. Aizawa drawled lazily, falling into the familiar tones he used with the Deku persona. Deku grimaced and picked at his wrists some more. Aizawa watched intently to make sure he wasn't scratching. If the kid was scratching, then this conversation would end in order to give the boy space to calm down. Aizawa simply stared at the boy otherwise, knowing he wouldn't stay silent for long. The brat hated being stared at in silence. Stop that. You are just like Inui-sensei when you stare. The boy grumbled. Aizawa's lip quirked slightly, but he remained silent. Deku shifted uncomfortably before heaving a sigh, the focus on his wrists growing more intense. My team beat his in the training exercise. He didn't like that. He said that I shouldn't be acting as if I am better than him. Aizawa blinked at the kid. There was no way that was the full truth. Deku shifted uncomfortably again under the silent gaze, glaring at Aizawa a few times before relenting. Don't punish him. It's normal for people to act that way when they find out. I told you earlier. Did he say something about you being quirkless? Deku flinched, glancing quickly over at Toshinori, who had shifted uncomfortably before looking back down at his wrists. Yes. What did he say? Just normal things. Your version of normal is rarely what others would call normal, Aizawa said, allowing a small hint of frustration enter his voice. Deku flinched again. He just said that I piss him off. That I only won because I used a dirty trick. That a quirkless kid would never match up. Deku hesitated a bit, studying Aizawa's face. See, just normal stuff. He didn't even touch the surface of some of the other stuff I heard today. He was just angry. Aizawa furrowed his brows. Something was still missing. Bakugo said this to you and did nothing else. He didn't use his quirk. He didn't threaten you. The slight hesitancy in Deku's expression was enough for Aizawa to know he had hit the mark. How did he use his quirk? Toshinori asked, catching on. I didn't hear any explosions. They were just small pops. He was trying to be quiet. Deku murmured. They wouldn't have even hurt. A memory pulled at the back of Aizawa's mind. Deku being held down as a thug moved a lighter towards his face. Fear evident in every muscle strain of the child. You don't like fire, Aizawa stated. If Bakugo was being quiet, he would have been close to your face for the threat to land properly. Deku flinched again, hands moving to pull at his hair slightly. It was nothing. Really. He didn't hurt me. He didn't do anything. You can't say anything, Aizawa-sensei. The boy looked Aizawa in the eyes. Promise you won't get him in trouble. I wasn't kidding when I told you that things only get worse when teachers interfere. Aizawa sighed, looking over at Toshinori. The other man stared back, grim expression on his face. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have dragged you away from class. This was stupid. I should have been able to calm down. Deku fidgeted as he apologized and scolded himself. I've handled this before. I'll be fine. I'm fine. It's not like what he said was wrong either. I don't know why I broke down. So stupid. The muttering continued as the boy's nails finally dug into his skin, drawing blood. Aizawa immediately reached out towards the boy and pulled his hands away, Deku jumping and pulling away from the contact. Aizawa didn't let go. Stop. Scratching. Aizawa growled out. Deku's eyes were wide, and he glanced down to his wrists, where a small amount of blood seeped from the crescent-shaped wounds. Sorry. I'm sorry. underscore 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 Izuku was forced to have a 2-hour session with Inui-sensei after his breakdown in the observatory room. He told the dog man about as much as he had told Aizawa, though the conversation ended up mostly focused on the new wounds around Izuku's wrists. Izuku hated talking about his scratching. So what if he scratched a little? It wasn't like it would kill him. Did you scratch before entering UA? Inui-sensei asked, jolting Izuku a bit. No. Not since the CC cuffs. Inui-sensei hummed thoughtfully, scribbling the rare note on the clipboard by his side. What did you do when you got anxious before? I don't know. What kind of question is that? Inui-sensei eyed Izuku thoughtfully. Aizawa-san said that you were anxious even before living here. I have a feeling that you partook in other means of self-harm. It's not self-harm if it doesn't affect me long-term. Deku waved his hand in front of his face, as if brushing off the notion. Inui-san growled. Deku froze at the sound. Very rarely did the calm and collected therapist get angry. Deku had only experienced it once before outside of therapy. Deku had been bored and decided to see if he could scale the mostly glass upper floors of UA. After falling a few stories and being caught by the dog man, Inui-sensei had become difficult to understand through his growls and howls as he scolded the boy. Anything that you do to make yourself feel pain is self-harm, Midoriya-kun. The man growled. Any form is harmful, and we need to talk about it. Deku eyed him cautiously before speaking. I don't want to. Inui seemed to calm at this sighing as he sat back in his chair, rubbing his forehead. I can give you a level 5 question from the list. I have a few saved. Although Deku's curiosity piqued, he held firm. No, I'm not talking about it. Inui sighed again, but ultimately moved on to another topic. By the end of the session, Izuku was exhausted. Today has just been too difficult. Underscore 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 upon entering the teacher's night dorms. Izuku found Aizawa making a small dinner. I thought you had patrol tonight. Why aren't you in gear? Aizawa turned to face the freckled child. I don't think it is a good idea for me to go tonight. Are you sick? No. Then why aren't you going? You've had a long day, brat. I think I should stick around tonight. I'll make up for the missed shift another day. Anger spiked in Deku. Absolutely not, he growled. You can't miss patrol just because of me. Aizawa sighed, turning the oven on the lowest setting to keep the soup from getting cold. I decide when I head out. Aizawa moved towards the door, most likely to call the remaining teachers to dinner. This was common when only Kayame-sensei and Yamada-sensei stayed the night. Deku followed the man as he headed towards the sitting room. You promised to take care of my territory. You can't just skip out on a shift. Kayame-sensei looked back at the two as they entered the room. As I said, brat, I am the only one who decides my patrol schedule. You can't chew. Aizawa spoke over Deku's protests. Where is Hisashi? Getting paperwork from the study. She replied, eyes flicking between her friend and the angry boy following behind. I heard my name, Yamada-sensei said as he walked out of the study. Dinner, Aizawa stated to the two of them. On the way back to the dining area, Deku continued. If you don't do patrol, then who is watching out for everyone? Look, kid. You saw how they were during the holiday break. They will survive one night. What if some major drug deal is going down tonight and you miss it? What if a gang fight breaks out, destroying people's homes? Any of that could happen on a normal night when I don't patrol. But you are supposed to patrol tonight, Deku cried out. Aizawa gave the boy a look that made Deku clamp his mouth shut. I'm done talking about this. Sit down. I'll bring your dinner to you. Deku reluctantly did as he was told, grumbling. Yamada laughed as he took his seat. "You're lively tonight, little listener." Deku glared at him. "Make Eraser go on patrol," he commanded. Yamada only laughed. "I can't make Shota do anything. You're his husband. You have at least a little power over him." Kayama laughed this time. "Maybe in the bedroom, but not when it comes to hero work." "Kayama," Yamada blushed. "If Hizashi had it his way, Aizawa wouldn't be doing patrol at all. He thinks it's too dangerous to be dealing with the shadier aspects of society." Kayama continued. Deku looked down at the table. "That's stupid." A bowl of rice and another bowl of vegetable soup entered Deku's line of sight as Aizawa set the items before the boy. As the man turned to serve the others, Deku spoke again. "I'm fine. I don't need you to baby me. Don't stay here just because I had a stupid moment of weakness earlier." Kayama, who had not yet heard of the breakdown, looked at the boy in interest. "You aren't helping your case, problem child. The fact that you think you're fine just puts me more on edge." Deku snarled slightly at the older man, but couldn't think of anything to say. Deku continued to glare as the others began eating. After about 5 minutes, Aizawa looked at the boy. "Eat," he commanded. "No," Deku responded. Aizawa twitched in annoyance, setting his chopsticks down. "Do you want something else?" "No. I actually think this looks good," Deku said in a snarky tone. "But I'm not going to eat until you agree to go on patrol." "Come now, little listener," Yamada said, trying to ease the situation as he often did when Deku grated on his husband's nerves a little too much. "You have to eat. Especially after that exercise you did today." Deku shook his head. "If my people aren't being taken care of, then I won't take care of myself." Aizawa violently snatched up his chopsticks. "You aren't leaving the table until you finish." "Fine," Deku said before looking over to Yamada. "I'm not going to be able to turn in my homework tomorrow, since Sensei-kun doesn't let me do homework during dinner." Yamada quickly dropped his humored grin at his husband's withering look. The 3 teachers ate the rest of their meals quietly, and then went off to relax or do any extra work they had left. Deku sat at the table, still refusing to eat. After 2 hours of sitting in his chair, watching the ceiling and playing with the food before him, Aizawa re-entered the dining area, dressed in his Eraserhead gear. "Eat your goddamn food, brat. I'll go." Deku grinned widely as he drank the cold broth and soggy vegetables before turning to his rice. Aizawa sat watching, making sure he finished every bit of food in front of him. As soon as Deku finished, Aizawa stood and left to go on patrol. Underscore 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 underscore. Although Deku had asked him to go, the boy felt a painful tug in his gut when watching the underground hero retreat. The boy shook his head clear and put his dishes in the sink. Izuku opted to work on his homework in the main area, where Kayame-sensei still sat working. I can't believe he actually went. If Hizashi had tried pulling that sit, Shota would have laughed at him as he starved. Then again, Hizashi would never last long, the woman commented. The green-eyed boy felt a swell of pride at having at least that small amount of control over his guardian. The two worked in silence, finally turning in for the night around 23 o'clock. Aizawa knew he shouldn't go on patrol. His gut had coiled at the thought. He knew the problem child wasn't okay. Yet, the damn brat had to go and threaten no to eat. Knowing Deku, the kid probably wouldn't eat all the next day either, waiting until Aizawa finally went on patrol. He had promised the problem child that he would look out for the people in his territory, but this was a little ridiculous. What the hell did the kid think happened when Aizawa wasn't on patrol? One night wouldn't have made a difference. But the child was stubborn, so here he was, on patrol in Deku's old territory. Of course, it was mostly quiet, and Aizawa was partially kicking himself for listening to the 14-year-old. When the exhausted hero received a call from his husband at 3 o'clock, his heart sank with regret. He knew. He should have forced the brat to eat. He should have let him go hungry for the night. He knew the issues from earlier weren't over. What? He said from his perch on the rooftop. I can't calm him down. Show. Hizashi's voice sounded quiet and concerned across the line. What's going on? Aizawa asked as he headed back towards Yua. I don't know. The kid was sleeping peacefully when I checked around midnight, but he woke up screaming about 15 minutes ago. Kayama is afraid to use her quirk since it could just make the nightmares worse. Aizawa grunted as he landed a little harshly after jumping from one rooftop to the other. He wasn't making sense at first. I think he was still dreaming. He kept asking us to stop. That he was sorry. He was begging us to forgive him. Hizashi's voice broke. Aizawa stayed silent, waiting for his husband to continue. Then he seemed to wake up. It didn't really get better. He hasn't screamed, but I don't know Shota. He won't respond. He won't speak, not even sign. I can get about 5 feet from him, but he starts shaking. He bit me when I reached out my hand. Okay, Aizawa finally said. What is he doing now? Are you with him? I stepped out to call Nezu and you. Nezu is on his way as well, but suggested that you may be a better option to help. Kayama is in there right now. Aizawa heard movement on the other line, and the whispered voice of Kayama. Aizawa, she said in greeting, apparently having taken the phone from Hizashi. What's he doing, Kayama? He's curled up in the corner. He wrapped himself in the bed sheets and comforter. He's not responding unless we get close to him. He seems to prefer me to Yamada. So long as I don't touch him, he doesn't lash out. But he bit a chunk out of Yamada's hand when he got too close. He's crying but doesn't seem to be outwardly panicking. But something seems wrong. The look in his eyes. I can't explain it. Or, at least, I've never seen it on a kid before. Give him the phone, Aizawa said calmly. More shuffling and Aizawa could hear Kayama's soft voice from a distance. It's Aizawa, Izuku-kun, Eraserhead, Kayama stated. There was no response. He wants to speak with you. Will you take the phone? Still no response. Then more shuffling. He has the phone. He heard Kayama from far off. Hey kid. He spoke into the receiver. Can you tell me what's going on? Only a slight hitch and quiet breathing answered him. I'm on my way back. I'll be there in about 30 minutes. Still no reply. I gave the rest of the dinner I made to someone in your territory. She said she knew you. It was an older lady with purple glasses. She said she can see auras or something. I think her name was Yunasan. Still no reply. But Aizawa kept talking as the heavy breathing seemed to ease a bit. You were right, kid. The rival gangs were at it again tonight. But no one got hurt. They are still more tame than they used to be. I assume your appearance at Christmas had something to do with that. They were bickering over who had the right to guard the mid-street actually. Not to do damage, just help people. They've been doing odd jobs around here since the holidays. Helping people find their way home, making food and sharing it. Mid-street is pretty busy, so both sides wanted to patrol it. I had them split it down the center. I thought you would agree with that. Aizawa waited a moment for a reply. Are you there, kid? Nothing. I need you to make some kind of noise, so I know I'm not talking for no reason. A slight shuffle of fabric was his response. Okay, I suppose that works, Aizawa said. I'm running out of things to say, problem child. I'm not usually the person who carries a conversation. Damn it, if only the trains were running at this hour. He could arrive a good 10 minutes faster than he could by foot. Did you have a bad dream? Aizawa tried. The hitch of breath told him to stay away from that topic, so he tried again. Is someone in there with you still? Tap the phone once for yes, twice for no. 1 tap. Is it midnight? 1 tap. Is Hizashi there as well? 1 tap. Is anyone else there yet? 2 taps. Do you feel okay with Zashi and Kayama being there until I get back? 2 taps. Do you want them to leave? 2 taps. Do you want them to stay? 1 tap. Okay. I heard you bit Zashi. Did he scare you? 1 tap. Did you at least get a good bite out of him for being an idiot? No reply. He'll survive, kid. I kneed him in the face not long ago after he woke me up from a dream. Aizawa sighed. Holding a conversation without the other person responding was draining. To top it off, he was sleep-deprived from having been up all day. He lapsed into silence as he ran faster, finally entering the more familiar territory that surrounded the school. 2 taps. 2 taps. 2 taps. 2 taps. 2 taps. Aizawa immediately registered that the boy was not using Morse code, though that would have been helpful. Thus, he was either fidgeting or repeating no over and over again. Is something wrong? 1 tap. I'm almost there. 1 tap. Do you think you are in danger? 2 taps. Are you afraid of something? 1 tap. Can you tell me why? Just 1 word. Or sign so that Kayama or Hisashi can tell me. There was a loud cracking sound in his ear and a small yelp in the background. Some shuffling sounded and Yamada came on the line again. What did you say? He just chucked the phone across the room. Aizawa sighed. He said he was afraid. I just asked him to sign a word to you so you could tell me why. I'm not sure why that would piss him off, though. What's he doing now? He's rocking back and forth. I think he is crying again too. I'm 5 minutes out. I'll be there soon. Okay. Izuku hadn't dreamed about that past in a long time. Maybe he was finally breaking apart now that he didn't have to constantly be on high alert. Or maybe it was because of what happened with Bakugo earlier. Or maybe it was the trouble with Class 1C. For whatever reason, Izuku had dreamed. His shoulders ached in response and his stomach churned. He was pretty sure his body had moved, but there he was, still cowering. Still huddled over Mama. Then it changed, and it wasn't Daddy hurting him anymore. It was Kaken, the childhood friend from back when he was a toddler. Then Kaken turned into Bakugo, and Izuku's mind blearily connected the quirks together. Kaken and Bakugo were probably the same kid. But that didn't really matter right now. Next, the person above him changed into Takubanasan from his first foster home. Then it was Kaiwa from his primary school. Then it was Motoji-san, who had preferred locking him in the closet to hitting him. But did it really even make a difference? Even as the faces above him changed, Mama stayed the same. Her skin burnt black and peeled back to reveal bloody flesh underneath. Her green eyes so similar to his own wide open, unseeing. He mouth open in a silent scream. Then the face above changed again, Okapson. His fists bloody. His blonde hair falling limply over his enraged face. Did Okapson even have blonde hair, though? He was calling his name. But the voice didn't match up. The face twisted again. Yamada-san. Present Mike. A few feet away. Mama was gone. He was in his room at Ua. Yamada looked worried. He reached out a hand and Izuku couldn't stop his immediate fight response. There was a metallic taste in his mouth. Yamada was cradling a bloody fist to his chst. I'm sorry. His mind cried out. But his voice didn't work. His trembling hands were numb and could strongly move. He was freezing, but his back was still burning. Deku was there. But it was all wrong. He wasn't letting Izuku calm down. Izuku wasn't able to make that part back off. He was too scared. He was going to die. A woman was there now. He knew her from somewhere. She was okay. Not a threat. Tears were streaming down his face for some reason, and he was on the floor. But I fell asleep on the bed. The world was moving too fast, but everything seemed to take so long. Every thought, every movement. They were talking to him, calling his name, asking questions. Can't you understand? I can't reply, I'm dying, I'm already halfway there. His mind screamed. He needed out, but he couldn't move. He wanted to be safe and secure, so he pulled in on himself. He was wrapped in blankets, he noticed. He backed further into them. Yamada stepped out. The woman was sitting close, but making no move to touch him. She was safe. She looked like Mama with her hair half up. I think that's a hero. You know her. You know her. But he didn't really know anything right now. Then, there was a phone in his face. His ears were working, but he couldn't understand. He tried really strong to focus, but the man by the door was pacing back and forth. Back and forth. Aizawa. The woman had said. He knew her. He just couldn't remember. But he did remember Aizawa. Aizawa was safe. The woman glanced at the phone in her hand, Aizawa. He grasped the phone and put it to his ear. The woman spoke again, he thinks. Hey, kid! Can you tell me what's going on? Izuku understood that. It was clear. But his voice wouldn't work and his hands were still numb. Izuku latched onto every word he said. That voice on the other side of the phone was a floating device to the drowning boy. When it stopped, Izuku stopped, falling deeper before coming back up with the voice's next words. 1 tap for yes, 2 taps for no. Even Izuku's shaking and numb hands could do that. He answered questions. Yes, 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 no, 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 yes. The questions didn't really matter because he couldn't remember them after only a few seconds, but he thought he was answering honestly. If he wasn't truthful, he was punished. No one liked a liar. He didn't like liars. But no one liked the truth either. It's why you had to play the game. Only speak when spoken to. Never a straight answer. Always watching, assessing, analyzing. People aren't that strong when you know how to read them. But he was strong to read. Maybe he wasn't a person. Maybe he wasn't Izuku, or Deku, or anyone. No, 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 no. I'm almost there. The voice had said. Aizawa. The voice was Aizawa, remember? Yes. Are you afraid of something? Aizawa asked. Yes. I am always afraid. Can you tell me why? Just one word. Or sign so that Kayama or Hizashi can tell me. No, I can't talk. I can't breathe. Don't you understand? I'm dying. I'm probably already dead. Just listen, why can't you hear me? I'm screaming. Deku was angry, and then the voice Aizawa. Remember that it was Aizawa was gone. A loud crack echoed throughout the room a moment later. Izuku was falling again, and he couldn't see anymore. Maybe it was because his head was in his knees. When had he done that? Back and forth. Back and forth. He was on a sinking ship. Drowning. No one could hear him. Back and forth. Back and forth. Mama was there. Waiting. Back and forth. Back and forth. He was trapped. All dark. In the closet again. Back and forth. Back and forth. His back burned. Back and forth. Back and forth. Izuku. Aizawa said as he knelt in front of the boy. How long has it been now? Recovery girl asked from somewhere behind him. Almost an hour. Midnight replied. Izuku. Aizawa said again. The boy stopped rocking. Let me see your hand. Recovery girl told Yamada. His husband claimed he was fine. Izuku, I need you to look up. Is Nezu on his way? Midnight asked. Yes. He'll be here soon. Izuku. Look at me, kid. The boy finally lifted his head. Tears streamed down his cheeks. His eyes were clouded over with something unseen. That's good, kid. The boy reached towards Aizawa, and the man stilled and relaxed his body, making sure to not register as a threat. The child's hands reached around the capture scarf that still hung around Aizawa's neck. Izuku, nod if you hear me. A nod. But the focus was on the scarf. As the child lifted his head more, bloody scratches became apparent. They ran from his temple down to his neck. Can you talk? The green eyes met his black ones. They were so sad. They had seen horrors that Aizawa would never know of. I'm drowning, Aizawa-sensei. And I can't remember how to swim. The cryptic message wasn't exactly what Aizawa had expected, but he could work with it. That's okay. I can swim. I'll help you. What does that mean? Kayama whispered. I think I'm dying again. The boy whimpered. You aren't going to die. I won't let you. Aizawa replied. Panic attacks are often described as drowning. Gio said. I don't belong here. I don't deserve this. I want to go home. Where is home? Aizawa asked. I want to go to my mom. My mom is home. The green eyes slid to the side, eyeing something on the bed. Aizawa looked over towards where the boy's gaze had landed. Grab me that rabbit, Zashi, he said softly. And try to find Chado. She might help. He gave the toy to Izuku, who hugged it close to his chest. Mama had green hair too. Mine is more black. Like Daddy's. Do you think I look like him? I don't know. I never met either of them. Aizawa said truthfully. My back hurts. It burns. But I'm drowning. I didn't know fire could burn on water. It can't, usually. The small child was reaching out again, holding tight to the capture weapon. This will make it better. Don't tell the teachers, or I'll be taken away from Mama. Just hide it, and I'll be okay. Aizawa's heart lurched. He had seen the burned scars across the kid's back. He had assumed they were from the house fire. He now realized that he was wrong. Nezu's here, Sho. Yamada said from behind his back, voice thick with emotion. The green eyes never left the capture weapon. They never reacted to the voices of the others. Aizawa didn't want to bring the child's attention elsewhere, now that he was speaking. Oh my. Another attack, I see. The rat sighed. Aizawa worked strong to keep his face neutral, even as anger spiked through him. The damned rat sounded like he was enjoying this. What happened? Nezu questioned. Kayama filled him in quickly. Do you die sometimes too? The child asked, voice soft. Aizawa wasn't exactly sure how to answer. If the kid meant the literal form of die, then the answer was obviously no. Aizawa was too skilled now to be that close to death too often. However, when he was younger. Then again, if the kid was trading the word die with the word panic, then he died on a regular basis, though not to this extent. But there had been plenty of nights when Izashi had to drag him out of a nightmare. Sometimes. He eventually responded. The kid's eyes lit up a little bit at this, looking slightly less, well, dead. That had been the correct answer, apparently. My back really burns. The child whimpered out again. Aizawa couldn't quite figure out why that would be. The child was actually shivering slightly. His hand that brushed Aizawa's neck now and then was icy. I'm gonna remove the blankets, then. Maybe that will help, Aizawa said. He waited for the kid to nod before moving closer. As he leaned over to remove the massive sheets and comforter from around the child, the boy clenched tighter to the capture scarf, burying his face in Aizawa's chest. Choto appeared from in between the blankets. She had apparently been keeping close to Izuku but staying hidden. The cat mewed and rubbed against Izuku, but the boy didn't react. It unnerved Aizawa that the kid didn't react to the kitten when the tiny thing was almost always connected to the child's side when he was in the house. Even though the kid was radiating a cold chill, he was drenched in sweat. When Aizawa moved back, the child followed, not letting go of Aizawa's front. Aizawa didn't know what to do. The kid normally doesn't like to be touched, but now he was curled in Aizawa's lap, seeming to hang on for dear life. Aizawa looked up towards Izashi for help, but the man only shrugged his shoulders. It was clear he had shed a few tears while Aizawa had handled Izuku. Izuku? Aizawa asked. The kid only held on tighter, a silent sob rattling through his body. Please don't leave, he said after a moment. I won't. Aizawa instinctually let one hand move to Izuku's back, rubbing small circles into it. The boy relaxed a bit. Chiyo walked over to the two, not needing to lean down due to her short stature. Hello, Izuku, she said. The boy didn't respond, not even to flinch. I don't think he can hear you, Aizawa said. Izuku did react to this by shifting his body slightly. Choyo nodded. He's probably still having a panic attack, then. Even if he seems calm. Try to walk him through some grounding techniques. It's not healthy for him to be in a continuous state of stress. Aizawa quirked an eyebrow at her. 5 things he sees. 4 things he feels. 3 things he hears. 2 things he smells. 1 thing he can taste. Nezu supplied. Izuku. The boy shifted again. Tell me something you can see. Izuku's body relaxed even more. I can see the color green. Try to have him be more specific with the next one, Nezu said, humming slightly. What else can you see, Izuku? The boy leaned back slightly, away from Aizawa's chst to look around. His eyes were still mostly cloudy, but cleared slightly as he focused on an item above Aizawa's head. The shelf. What about the shelf? The books that are on the shelf. They've fallen over. What else do you see? Izuku looked behind him this time. A pile of BB blankets on the ground. Another. There is a S string hanging off the PP person's housecoat. I know that person. I've met her before, he said, pointing at Kayama. I think she's a teacher. Aizawa looked back at his colleague, slightly confused as to why Izuku wouldn't remember her. One more thing, Izuku. My hands, he said quietly, suddenly inspecting the hand that had pointed. They exist still. They look so pale compared to her hands. Considering that Izuku was tan in comparison to Midnight, his word choice made Aizawa's stomach sink. Okay? Name something you can feel. My clothes. They are sticking to me. I think it's from drowning in the WW water. Something else you can feel. This, Izuku tugged on the capture weapon. It's stretchy, and thin, and cold, even though it looks doubly warm. I prefer the cold. Aizawa was about to speak again when Izuku moved his hand to Aizawa's hair and then to his own. Your hair isn't soft like mine. Mine curls around my fingers, like my bunny. Izuku hugged the toy closer to him with his other hand. But yours is like Chato's. Straight. Okay? Did that count as 3 or 4? I can hear my heartbeat in my ears. The hum of the air conditioner. And shifting. Shifting. From Yamade-sensei. Back and forth. Back and forth. Hizashi stopped pacing by the door. I can't really smell anything. My nose is stuffy. That okay? Aizawa looked towards Nezu for the answer. He had never actually done this type of thing before. When he had a panic attack, usually he just figured it out after a while or used Hizashi's support to get through it. But Nezu and Izuku seemed to have this process memorized, as if it were as common as blowing your nose when it dripped. That is fine, Midoriya-kun. The rat supplied. Izuku nodded, though he didn't look at the principal. I can taste blood, sorry. Izuku said after another moment. He had backed away slightly from Aizawa's CHST, but still sat in his lap. One hand curled in the capture weapon, and the other holding tight to the rabbit. The tears on his face were drying as Izuku looked around, his eyes clearing more with each passing second. Chio came forward again. Can I check your temperature? I don't have a fever, the boy stated. It was just from. He shook his head. Yeah, go ahead. Recovery girl moved the forehead thermometer across his forehead. You were correct, no fever. Though you are just slightly colder than what you typically run. That is because I was dying again. All my warmth goes away. What? What happened, kiddo? Yamada asked from his place by the door. Izuku's eyes were starting to droop, and he leaned his head back against Aizawa's CHST. I don't know. I haven't seen her in so long, he said blarily. And he was hurting her. Then he was hurting me. And all the other people too. I just wanted to protect her. Then, I couldn't move. I couldn't see or hear or breathe. I think he was killing us. The room was silent as each person mulled over his words. I'm so sleepy, he said as his eyes drifted shut. After a few minutes, Izuku's breathing evened out, and Aizawa moved to stand. The child quickly grasped on and stirred. You promised not to leave. The child slurred. I'm not leaving. Aizawa responded, continuing to stand up while supporting the small teen's weight. It wasn't strong. The kid was still tiny despite being a healthy weight. But I need to put you down. I'll still be in the room. Aizawa tried to settle the boy on the bed, but to no avail as the boy refused to lighten his grip. Eventually, he removed the capture weapon from around his neck and allowed Izuku to hold on to that instead. The boy seemed content with that for now. Aizawa placed the blankets back over him once the child had ceased his stirring. The others, with the exception of Chio, who was currently healing the scratches that ran down Izuku's face, had filtered out into the hall. Aizawa waited for the healer to finish before following her out. He stopped in the doorway and leaned against it, not breaking his promise to the kid. What the hell? Aizawa had grumbled when he leaned in the doorway. I shouldn't have King left. Yamada noticed how his husband fiddled with the edge of his pocket, a sign of anger when he didn't have his capture weapon to mess with. No, Shota, don't beat yourself up over this. This was odd. He didn't have the best day, but that was ridiculous. The little listener just wakes out of the blue completely panicked. It wasn't like any of the other times. He seemed so much more unstable, Yamada said quietly. also feeling anger start to bubble in his chest, now that the itching worry was dissipating. Just what the hell happened to that kid exactly? Kayama asked, her voice hushed. We know he was abused as a child, then passed around to different foster homes. Then he was abused again before making his way to the streets, where he became a vigilante. Chiyo supplied. His symptoms are common with trauma and abuse. He never did this when he was on the streets. Aizawa said defensively. No, he wouldn't. Nezu chirped. When people are in difficult situations, their minds protect them, creating a type of shield to prevent them from feeling the full extent of the misery they are in. However, once that person begins to feel safe, those protections are no longer needed. At first, I thought the Deku persona was Midoriya-kun's shield. However, I don't believe that was completely true any longer. Deku seems to be an alternate name that Midoriya uses to describe his bravery, anger, and a few other emotions, whilst Izuku is the more sensitive emotions, thoughts, and feelings. He simply grouped those major aspects of himself together into two separate sides so that he could understand them better. His true shield was masked by the differing personas. They were much more normal than I had originally thought, being mostly invisible from the outside. The symptoms of this being his aversion to touch, his evasive behavior, and perhaps a few other oddities that both personas share. Nezu wasn't smiling, but his tone was light. He looked to be deep in thought, as if inspecting a wounded animal on the verge of death, pondering what made it keep fighting. That pissed Aizawa off. Yamada inched closer to his husband, knowing that in these rare moments of anger, Aizawa could actually say some nasty things. It wouldn't be good if he went too far with their boss. That kid is not a toy, Nezu, Aizawa growled. He isn't some science project for you to dissect. You said you knew he would break down? What the hell, UFC King Rat? Aizawa was seething. Yamada moved to comfort his husband and hopefully rein in his mouth, but the black-haired man waved him off quickly. Yamada backed away, ultimately deciding that his husband was probably screwed, no matter how he interfered now that Shota had called Nezu a FC King Rat. We are pro-heroes, not FC King therapists. That kid should be getting trained, professional help, but instead you dragged him here so that you could play your games. He isn't some pawn you can use, he is a child. The words were dripping venom. At some point, Aizawa had unconsciously activated his quirk as he glared at the principal. Yamada internally groaned at the spark he saw ignite in Nezu's eyes. Aizawa, Nezu began, a smirk forming on his face. Have you forgotten his daily therapy? Are you not the one I've been working with one-on-one in order to aid the boy? Do you really believe he would be better? Do better elsewhere? What do you think would have happened to him had he been placed in a mental institution? Maybe he would have been helped. At least a little bit more better than what we are capable of doing here. Aizawa ground out. A deep breath, and Aizawa's hair dropped as his quirk deactivated. Incorrect. Midoriya is a ward of the state. He would have been sent to a state-run hospital. If he was lucky, and the hospital even had one, he would be placed on a child's ward. But his more dangerous tendencies would have necessitated he be chained and under constant supervision until they were able to use a CCK tail of drugs to make sure he would be no trouble. The faces of the three younger pros paled. Chiyo shook her head, knowing that what Nezu said was true. He would have been kept on those drugs until he aged out of the system. Then what? He would have landed back on the street or in prison. If he were to have been placed in a hospital without a child's ward, a much more likely scenario, the same would occur. However, he would have been given next to no attention. He would have rotted away. Perhaps they would try to give him therapy, but the child would have been too drugged for it to be truly beneficial. Should they try to take him off the drugs, the child would never trust that they actually cared. He, once more, would be locked in chains or find his way back to the streets. Aizawa clenched his fist and looked back at the sleeping child who hadn't moved from his spot on the bed. This time, Yamada didn't allow Shota to shake off his advance as he held the man's hand to help comfort them both. The blonde felt the other relax just slightly at the touch, though his body was still wound tight. Our world isn't perfect. I simply did what I calculated to be the best move for the benefit of both the child and society as a whole. Midoriya-kun had already formed an attachment to you by the time he was caught. In a way, he saw you as a father figure. You only reinforced this through the care you have shown him during his stay thus far. So you used Shota as the pawn, Yamada said quietly. Are you upset as well? Nezu said with a small chuckle. No, Yamada supplied. But I sometimes wonder if you care how your games affect those around you when you don't clue them in. Yamada was feeling tired from Chiyo's quirk, and he hurt to see his partner upset. But if Aizawa wasn't going to be clear-headed, it was his job to step up. To complement Shota's traits in the same way his husband helped complement his own. Shota had always had a soft spot for his students. This one even more so. It was Yamada's duty to ensure that this soft spot didn't negatively affect the quality of any of their lives. Shota squeezed his hand lightly. Sleep wasn't safe tonight. Though he was so tired. Even when he had drifted off in Aizawa's arms, it was only partially. A light balance between the world of dreams and wakefulness. He heard the conversation being spoken in the hall, but couldn't really understand the meaning behind the words. After the whispered angry voices stopped, Izuku began to feel the tight squeeze in his chest. They left. He was alone. He knew he was alone. He always ended up this way in the end. Grown-ups were liars. He squeezed his eyes shut tightly, not wanting to confirm that he once again had no one. But the curiosity got the better of him, and he peeked one eye open. Hey kid, I'm still here, Aizawa said. The man was leaning against the wall, arms crossed over his chest. Izuku closed his eyes again, falling back into the in-between state. Maybe this grown-up just hadn't figured out that he wasn't worth the time yet. It wouldn't be much longer. But until then, Izuku would take any reassurance the man gave. Nezu and Chiyo had left now that the boy was settled and Kayama had retreated back to her room to catch up on sleep. Aizawa remained in the room with Izuku, his husband, also insisting on staying. Hisashi handed him a mug of coffee and sat on the floor beside him. I'm sorry I couldn't handle it, Shota, Yamada said to his husband. He just doesn't trust me like he trusts you. Yet, problem child doesn't really trust anyone, Aizawa said with a yawn, leaning his head against the blonde's shoulder. Shota, I don't want to overstep. I love Izuku. I think he is a great kid. I want to heal him, but I'm afraid he isn't good for you. I'm afraid how he is affecting you. What are you talking about, Zashi? How you're acting with him. This attachment. The way you want to protect him. Hisashi hesitated. Aizawa was suddenly extremely uncomfortable. Zashi. I figured it out, I think. I can see it when he smiles. When he isn't putting on any act. He is a lot like Shirakumo. Aizawa jerked back from his husband. Stop there, Hisashi, he told the man firmly, but the blonde was inspecting his hands, a sign that he wasn't about to listen. You can't bring him back to life, Sho. That's not what is going on here. It wasn't your fault he died. You have nothing to make up for. Hisashi, Aizawa growled warningly. The blonde man looked over at him, a soft smile on his face. Every time Izuku is in pain, you are ripped apart inside. Every time he cries, your face takes on that same look that you had for months after Shirakumo's death. The boy on the bed stirred again, immediately drawing Aizawa's attention away from this painful conversation. But the boy had only shifted into a more comfortable position. See, Yamada said. He's a good kid. But don't grow so attached that you can't let him go. He is a loose cannon. He might not even stick around. I don't want to see you hurt again. I'm done with this conversation, Yamada. Now shut up or get out. Aizawa snarled at the man. Yamada sighed and leaned his head against the wall. Fine. I'll shut up for now. The problem child woke up about every hour, never allowing himself to sleep long enough to dream again. Every time the green eyes would open, Aizawa would mumble a greeting or assurance that he was still present. At some point, Aizawa fell asleep. Yamada had dozed off not long after their conversation as well, and the two huddled on the floor, leaning on each other for support. Even if their previous conversation had ended badly, they still cared for one another. A small tap on Aizawa's shoulder stirred him from his slumber. Why are you sleeping on the floor? The freckled-faced child inquired as Aizawa rubbed the sleep off his face. Must have dozed off, he replied. The child sat crisscross in front of him, his eyes downcast, Looking to the side, Aizawa saw that Yamada was still drooling on his shoulder. The black-haired man sighed. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. The child spoke softly. You don't need to apologize, kid. It's not like you hurt anyone. I did. I bit him really strong, I think, Izuku said as he leaned over to inspect Yamada's already healed hand. Or I thought I did. Chiyo healed it earlier. It was just a flesh wound. He has had worse. Izuku still looked ashamed. You had to leave patrol early because of me. It was almost over anyway. You and I both know that nothing really happens between 3 o'clock and 5 o'clock. Nezu and Recovery Girl lost sleep. I don't think they mind. It keeps life exciting. I forgot who Midnight was for a little while. Do you think that hurt her feelings? She looks so different out of uniform. Don't worry about it. If she is bitter, she will make you make it up to her. Izuku fiddled with his wristbands. This used to happen when I was little. But it stopped when I started living on the street. Nezu said that it's some type of mental shield you put up to protect yourself. I know he is smart, but some of the stuff he says makes no sense. Aizawa snorted, causing Yamada to stir. What time is it, kid? Aizawa asked. A little past 8 o'clock. We are all late for class. Aizawa chuckled as he shook his husband to wake him up faster. Awa, Shota, Izuku. Why am I? Oh, right. Yamada proclaimed as he startled awake. You're late for class. All of us are, actually, Izuku told him. Yamada's eyes went wide as he shot up to a standing position. Izuku and Aizawa followed his lead. I gotta go, oh man, Nezu will kill me if I'm late for homeroom again. Yamada yawned the last words as he shuffled out of Izuku's room. You don't have to go in today, if you don't want to, Aizawa said slowly, watching the boys' reactions. Izuku shook his head. It's only the third day of school. I can't miss yet. Besides, Anzasen would find it hilarious if I didn't show up after hero training. I can hear the rumors now. Aizawa sighed and looked the small boy in the eye. We will need to talk about what you dream, you know? Some of the things you said last night. Izuku tensed, but nodded. Not today, though. Okay? Aizawa nodded, exiting his problem child's room in order to get ready for the day himself. The three were miraculously only 30 minutes late for their classes.